The Ryen Russillo Show is presented by DraftKings. We are packed today. Obviously, a bunch of NFL contenders stuff, including the demise of the Chiefs with Mike Sando, the Rams. We've got everything, basically any of the contenders we talk about them today. But more importantly, the College Football Committee has selected the playoff bracket, and predictably, some people are pretty upset about it. Danny Kanell is upset about it this weekend. We're going to discuss that with him and just my thoughts on the entire process in general. They're probably not like anybody else's. Stars are going off. Rookies are making noise, and the action doesn't stop. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is where you can get in on all of it. It tells me here to talk about a breakout player this NBA season. This sounds like a perfect time to talk about Kanell. Ever heard of him? He plays for my favorite team in the NBA, the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets, standings-wise, not what you'd hope, but only 2.5 games behind the Milwaukee Bucks in the standings for the play-in. The Hornets 7-17. Not great. Kanell, though, he's not the leading scorer for the team because that would be arrogant. He's not going to do that now as a rookie with LaMelo and Bridges on this team. He's like, no, I'm cool with my 18 a game. I'm cool with just taking 14 shot attempts per game. I'm cool with shooting splits at 46 and 40%, 40% from the floor on 8 3-point attempts per game. But did you want some dimes? I've got a few of those for you as well. He had a steal on a cut, the two-man game, maybe the most dangerous two-man game in the NBA, Jokic and Jamal Murray, who's been going crazy lately, right? I think kids say goes crazy. But Jokic, back cut to Murray, Kanell off the ball defensively, picks off the patch. He picked off a Jokic pass. So that's a player I could talk about that's having a breakout. Missouri fans, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in the Show Me State with more live markets and nonstop action. It's no wonder DraftKings is the #1 sportsbook for live betting. And don't forget, the Emirates NBA Cup is heating up. Big games, big moments, and plenty on the line. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Ryen. That's code Ryen, R-Y-E-N. Bet $5, win, and get $200 in bonus bets. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Chill.
Buy now and get the Russillo hoodie free. Call 1-800
European Theater.
The week is the Oregon Duck.
We need a big push here.
I'm disappointed that Notre Dame's out. I'm not outraged. This became more about Notre Dame and Alabama than it did Notre Dame and Miami, which was not the case for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's kind of funny, too, that we're talking about whether it's Notre Dame and Bama, probably even a sprinkling of Miami. But with Bama's success and Notre Dame's history as an independent, these are teams that generally every other fan base is united in and absolutely despising. So the first problem we have is that we have too much transparency. I've heard arguments for years talking about the selection process from the committee that starts back in 2014, post-BCS, that the weekly rankings are a made-up event for TV content. And I would say, all right, yeah, you're fine. I've heard how stupid it is all the time for years. But if we never had any access to this process, we would bitch about that nonstop. Imagine a scenario where we don't know what the committee thinks the entire season. The reason they don't do it at the beginning is we don't like rankings because of how that influences our perception of these teams. But if you got rid of the AP, you got rid of the coaches poll, then you would just be giving it all to probably somebody like ESPN that's like, hey, we have our own rankings. And then we would talk, somebody would fill that void because we hate it and love it at the same time. So when it gets back to the committee's weekly rankings, like, yeah, it's probably dumb that we see it every single week, but can you imagine the other version? Can you imagine sitting around yesterday as a college football fan and having no idea what they're thinking, and then we just get one ranking at the end of the season? Can you, like, do you realize how bad that would go? So in this case, I think we want to see the work, but when we see work that we don't like, then we're just going to be mad about that and say the whole thing is stupid. Maybe both of those things are fair, but I'm telling you right now, if you only got one ranking on a Sunday, you would lose your mind. The second to last ranking had Bama number 9, Notre Dame 10, BYU 11, Miami 12. Final ranking had Bama 9, Miami 10, Notre Dame 11, and BYU 12. It's really easy to say, hey, how does Bama lose its final game? Look as bad as they did, stay at 9, and then Notre Dame drops behind Miami when they didn't play. Like, that is a convincing sentence, but it's also, I think, a little misleading. Is it a conspiracy? Notre Dame seems to think so. I mean, they're on one right now, deciding that they're not going to play in a bowl game, somehow blaming ESPN for making money off of the team. Obviously, super mad at the ACC for the pro ACC stuff on Miami and the head-to-head, which you can totally understand. All right, but I get it. Like, this is usually a process where somebody is going to be really disappointed. And in Notre Dame's case, they're like, well, how could we have been ahead of them this entire time? Maybe our resume isn't better. Maybe we lost the head, but we were higher than them the entire time. So that transparency in this spot actually hurts them much more because they thought they were good this entire stretch. Again, it's tough. It's tough to say, yeah, you didn't do anything, and now we think that you're worse. But we'll get to that. Not playing in a conference championship game, I don't know that it matters. I don't care that they're independent. I don't know why people get upset about that whole thing. But we don't really have conferences anymore. Like, what's joining a conference? It's essentially a scheduling association. So many of these teams don't even have anything close to the same experiences because with all the expansion, they've destroyed what was like at least some sort of balance and felt like a fair representation of, if you win this conference, that means you're the best team. Some years it feels like you won this conference or you were in the conference championship game because the schedule worked out in your favor. Have you looked at Penn State's 26 Big Ten schedule yet? Probably not. Feel free. The other problem that Notre Dame had here is that when you look at the ACC and the tie-breaking scenarios where they had 5, 6, and 2 teams trying to figure out who was going to play Miami, they screwed it up. It's funny, though, because back in the day, the Big 12, and I remember this in 2008, where Texas had that unbelievable month where they had to beat all of these ranked teams. They ended up losing to Texas Tech, but they had beat Oklahoma in the head-to-head. Well, the Big 12 is trying to figure out who between Texas, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma is going to play Missouri in the Big 12 championship game, and they used a tiebreaker amongst 3 teams of using the highest-ranked BCS team. Then they added in the Texas rule in 2010 that was like, well, wait a minute. If we're ignoring the head-to-head there, then we should figure out something where if the 2 teams are within a spot of each other, even if Texas is in this scenario behind 1 spot in the BCS, if they've won the head-to-head, then let's go that way so that we're prioritizing the head-to-head. The point is we've been doing this every single year for the most part and trying to fix this stuff on the fly. And that worked against Notre Dame's favor as well because the ACC is like, what are we doing again? Duke's in it? Oh, that's because they didn't play any of the other top teams except for like 1. So if you look at the ACC's role in this with their own tiebreaker, then Duke winning in this scenario where we're like, hey, this is going to be kind of funny. Duke's going to win and they're going to have so many losses, they're going to leave them out. And then we're going to have a group of 5 team in. No, we're going to have 2 group of 5 teams in, which shouldn't happen. The group of 5 thing is nice in theory to make them feel included when you're trying to expand and get this thing to 12 teams. It's like, hey guys, you're going to have a spot. It's like, okay, now they have 2 spots. Should we have thought about this ahead of time? The same way that when they put together the seating last year, they were like, hey, this doesn't make a ton of sense. We're going to change this after only 1 year. So when you're running through the Miami and Notre Dame part of it, think of all of these scenarios that had to go against Notre Dame for this to happen. Lose the head-to-head, lose the head-to-head to a team with the same record, lose the head-to-head to a team that's right next to you in the rankings. And again, I'm going to get to some of these tier rankings that the committee talked about all the time. You have to have an extra group of 5 team get in because the team that you've lost the head-to-head to is from a conference that its conference championship game participants aren't good enough to be in the playoff. So that rules out the automatic qualifier. So Miami takes an at-large, and the second group of 5 team also costs you a spot. That's a lot of stuff. Bama, for the record, yes, I know my history here. But just to remind you, I did not argue Bama to be in the playoff last year, even before that final weekend. I didn't argue in any of those SEC teams. And honestly, towards the end of it, I liked Bama the least between South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Bama before the loss to Oklahoma. And another little reminder here, because we seem like we hate human beings right now with thoughts on stuff. The computers for ESPN, the FPI, their ranking system had Bama fourth in FPI after the season when they had a 9-4 record. Not saying we have to get rid of the committee and only use FPI, but just a reminder that everybody hated the BCS. Everyone hated it. And part of the calculus for the BCS were two human polls, the Harris and the coaches poll as well. So let's get back to Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans, be honest. You would never in a million years dismiss head-to-head if it had gone the other way around. You wouldn't. I know who you are. Not specific to Notre Dame fans, but I've dealt with college football fans for a long, long time. You're 10-2. You win 10 straight weeks or 10 straight games. 2 ranked wins, USC and Pitt. It's not the same as what Bama did this year, even if you look like the better football team. But you probably look like the better football team because in those wins, you played Purdue, Stanford, Cuse, and Boston College in that run. While Bama, for 1 month, played Georgia, Vandy, Tennessee, and Missouri. Their easy games against South Carolina, LSU, and then finished off with Oklahoma. Would you ever, if that were reversed, argue that the other team with their wins looking better, that it was the same challenge? You would never do that. And it sucks. I know it sucks for you. Look, I don't have to argue Bama hasn't looked great because they haven't looked great. It's not an argument. The second half of the season, they're an incredibly one-dimensional team that has a worse loss against Florida State at the very beginning of the year. That's far worse than losing to Miami or A&M, especially with a freshman quarterback getting his first snaps ever on the road. But it seems like the committee didn't want to punish Bama for playing in a conference championship game and losing. They didn't want to punish SMU last year that lost to Clemson, a Clemson team that wasn't great, that lost by a combined 51-17 to the 2 SEC schools they played in 24. Now you're going to tell me, hey, the SMU game came down to the very end. That's different than Alabama. Look, we can do this all day. You can say what's more important to fit your argument. I'm trying to find the argument where it makes sense of something that feels nasty. And you also have Bama beating Georgia earlier this year, which, by the way, BYU people, what are you doing? How are you comparing yourself to Alabama? Well, we lost the conference championship just like they did. Did you beat Texas Tech the first time, or did you look like that time also you don't belong on the field with them? I didn't understand the BYU stuff that was happening over this weekend. Maybe you work for a media outlet and you went to a Big Ten school. I don't know. The last thing that I want to close with here is comparing, the word compare, because the committee, and Yurachek, who's the commissioner, the chair, right, of this playoff committee, he just wasn't great at it. He wasn't great at the public speaking part of it. They kept explaining their own definition of like, hey, Notre Dame and Miami have to be next to each other for us to then use the head-to-head, right? That's where this whole thing went crazy and why Notre Dame fans got so mad, which I totally understand, because it's like the guy who represents this whole thing was telling you, well, wait a minute. Like, if you're saying that we're not close to each other, then the head-to-head thing doesn't matter. I thought we were good here. But what I never quite understood, because I've done 2 of the mock playoff scenario things when I was back at ESPN, and Reese Davis, to his credit, kept reminding everybody, and he was doing it again on the show yesterday, was like, hey, by the own definition of how they're comparing teams is that you have everybody vote and then they kind of put them into these pods. So you don't have to be 8 and then 9. Like, that was driving me nuts. Like, oh, if you're 8 and 10, we can't compare you to head to head. But if it's 8 and 9, now we're going to use it. But that's not really what the standard is based on their own explanation of that. Hey, pod wise, then we kind of like rank the teams, put them into pods, and we kind of rank those teams inside of the pods. There's no reason why Miami and Notre Dame shouldn't have been in that for weeks. But on November 19th, Yurachek said, quote, they're not in the same pod. So that's why Notre Dame fans are so pissed off, because you're like, hey, your explanation of this goes against everything that happened here at the very end, right? But that was wrong then. And I was wrong when I talked about Notre Dame and Miami being like, look, I just kind of think Notre Dame's better. And what's wrong with just going, hey, I'm in the room and I just think they're the better football team. And I thought that at the time because I thought Carson Beck and the wheels are going to fall off here, right? In that moment, that's how I felt about this team. And in that moment, that's probably how Miami and Notre Dame were discussed in that room. but it doesn't need to be a 0-12 to 12-0 swing to change these rankings. The committee reminds us this every single year, okay? Whatever the fake TV show is, and hey, this is what we're thinking right now, that the final rankings are a reset. They exhale, they use that term full body of work. You may not like it, but look, it happened to me this year with Notre Dame and Miami. I thought the Carson Beck wheels are going to fall off again. The Louisville game, I'm like, oh, here we go. The SMU game, that bad pick, I'm like, all right, felt better about Notre Dame. And then Miami figured it out. And I would have liked to have said at the time, like, hey, what's wrong with just saying if I'm in the room, I think this team is better than that team, even though that head-to-head is staring me right in the face. Well, I changed my mind. And clearly people in the committee changed their mind. And they probably changed it for something that should always make sense with all the flaws in this sport. Look, every year we're going to have a different set of scenarios. And with this sport, I guarantee it'll probably be next year. It's official. The Big Shack is out now. We're talking 2 Angus beef patties, 3 buns, new secret sauce. It's stacked, balanced, and built the right way. Kind of like the LA Rams. You get everything you expect from Shake Shack. Fresh ingredients, that toasted potato bun, and sauce that pulls the whole thing together. For $9.99, it's kind of wild how much burger you're getting, especially one that doesn't taste like typical fast food. It's big, it's fresh, it's legit one of their best burgers ever. See, I know what some of you are thinking right now that are still holding out. You're trying to fight that Big Shack burger urge that you have every time I say potato bun. And you're thinking, is that burger really for me? I'm not an everyday burger guy, okay? I think that's well established. But I'm telling you, whatever fears you have, that first bite, that first taste, be like, I deserve this. I deserve this. I've been a good husband. I've taught my kids right from wrong. I send the local police department $50 for that sticker around Christmas time every year. You know what? Today sounds like a great day for a burger. If you've been waiting to see what all the hype's about, today's the day. Go to Shake Shack and order the Big Shack. Sounds familiar, made different. It is time. We had this plan. We're excited with the college football rankings out. The bracket is set. Danny Kanell joins us from Dusty and Danny every day on SiriusXM and, of course, the Cover 3 podcast. Okay, so I've seen the Kanell content. I've kept mine close to the vest, was saving it for this, but I already explained it in the open how, look, I think it sucks that Notre Dame's out. I understand why they're out. I think it's an incredible string of circumstances in a system where we've only had 2 years for it. So ultimately with the rankings, your biggest issue is what?
The 3 teams that we knew there were going to be 2 spots for 3 teams, right? It was Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami, and there was only going to be 2 spots for that. Like, we knew that was going to be the case. And I think they got one right. Like, I just feel like Miami getting in everybody was blown away by that. And I did think in the argument, if you had similar resumes that you should have Miami ahead of Notre Dame. And I do think they were there. But I also felt like the best possible outcome for the committee, I thought they were handed on a silver platter exactly what they needed to make an easy decision that would have been easy to explain away. It wouldn't have any optics of, SEC favoritism or, conspiracy theories. You could have said, you know what? We watched Alabama play. We saw what happened against Georgia. I know they beat them in the regular season, but they are not playing good right now. They had lost 2 out of their last 4. They'd almost played a tight game with Auburn. I just thought everything that they needed to happen. BYU gets beaten and they get drubbed. So you had 2 blowouts. You could have even said, we treat everybody the same. And so Alabama, you have to show that you look like a team. They didn't. So I thought if that was their easiest explanation, would have been said, Miami, Notre Dame in, Alabama, sorry, it's your 3rd loss. You haven't looked competitive. You're out. Instead, they took this way, which I think I totally understand Notre Dame's frustration. Like, I get it. I get why they're ticked off. We didn't even play. We didn't even do anything. And they just decided all of a sudden that now the head-to-head matters. So, I understand Notre Dame's frustration because I think they're better than Alabama. And so I think that's where I think they had an opportunity to really put it in and make it an easy explanation. Now like they didn't even dock Alabama for that performance in the SEC championship game. They didn't even drop.
No, they didn't. And I know that like other things have been pointed out, and I didn't even really allow myself to get as mad about it as I've been all day on Sunday. But the BYU Alabama comparison is so fucking stupid. I'm like, so I don't even need to stay on it. Ohio State wasn't really penalized at all for losing the Big Ten championship game, a game where, sure, field goal here or something goes that way. But Indiana looked like the better football team for 3 hours. And it was one of those games where it was 13-10, and you're like, this is still only 13-10. Like, Indiana feels like they're completely in control of this game. So I don't really think that Ohio State was docked at all, because you probably could have gone, hey, one loss SEC title at Georgia, like, let's go with them. I thought they might do that. They didn't. So, look, I understand the Notre Dame frustration and all that stuff. But I think the committee, for you to say the easiest thing was there on a platter form, well, that should never be their priority, though. That should never be, like, if anything, it speaks to what I think is always lost in this, is that at the end of Saturday, it's like, okay, now we have it all. Whatever the rankings have been week to week, let's really just run through all this stuff. And I know no one wants to hear like the total body of work, but I just think it's funny, even though I'm frustrated for Notre Dame, the same arguments that people were making against Notre Dame to get Miami ahead of them, now those are conveniently being ignored because more people would rather Alabama be out, just because of the way we felt Alabama has been treated throughout this entire run, going back, like, look, earlier Saban years, those teams were really that good. Clearly, there's a lot of years in there like, oh, Bama found their way back into this whole thing, which I know, drives a lot of people crazy.
So, but here's what I think. Like, if I'm Texas, right, and Texas finished the season 9-3, they had some really impressive wins, but they had a couple bad losses that really stood out to you. And it's like, well, you can't lose to Florida, a bad Florida team, and you can't get blown out against Georgia. All of a sudden, Bama has an awful loss to Florida State, which they were lost by 2 touchdowns. They got beat convincingly by Georgia, and you're sitting there and you're saying, well, wait a second. Well, I thought that was what they used against us. Like, why Texas shouldn't have been in the top 15. I just think in all of this, and then what if you just came back to, this is the thing that blows me away with the coaches that are in that room, and and Wesley Walls, a former player. If you were just talking and said, do you think Alabama is one of the best 12 teams right now, or best 10 teams, because we have the group of 5? What would cause you to stand up and pound the table and say yes? Because Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's resume was weak, right? I mean, and so was Miami's, but at least Miami, and they kind of had that win against Notre Dame. At least they had that signature win. But when we heard the committee early, when they referenced Notre Dame, they were like, well, they've won 6 games in a row, now 7 games in a row, and then it was 8 games in a row. And even for Miami at the end, when they started to close that gap, they started to say, well, they're playing a lot better now. And then it culminated with the game against Pitt, which I thought was their best game of the year potentially. So they were talking about, where are they playing right now? They even referenced that a couple times. If you use that logic with Alabama, how can you say that's one of the best teams and one of the top 12 teams in the country? I just didn't think they had a lot of weight behind the Alabama, other than to say, this is a team that played in the SEC championship game. There's no way we can penalize them and keep them out, because then that would diminish the SEC, and it would, decentivize making that game, which you talk to Oregon, you talk to Oklahoma, you talk to any team in the Big Ten or SEC who doesn't have to play in that game, and they're probably like, thank goodness we don't have to play in that game. We get fresh. We get a bye week. There is this massive issue that's unfolding with conference championship games.
Yeah, look, the conference championship game thing goes all the way back to like the Big 12 controversies that I was looking up again from, over 15 years ago, because I remember early days of like, well, how does the Big 12 decide all this stuff? And they used to use the BCS tiebreaker, but then they didn't. Then there was a version of it where if it was division tiebreaker, the SEC used to have something where it was like lowest of the 3 is dropped, then you go head to head to avoid nullifying head to head like you had in 2008 with Texas and Oklahoma. So, you said something though. It's like, well, if the committee had said this about momentum, we don't we don't give any leeway to anyone that is a public representative of the committee. Okay. And I think if we took a step back and we're like a little more fair about this stuff, we realize how out of control we can be based on any piece of like information that they want to share with us. Okay. Because if I were the committee chair and say, hey, how come you like this team? I got to come up with a reason why I like the team and why the room likes the team. And I could say, well, hey, they've played really well. And SMU, if we're talking about Miami, like SMU's not a bad football team at all. Like they're not as good as they were last year, but like losing to SMU, especially with the penalty, you know, there's some things in there. All right. So now I've said this thing, but now I have to survive this whole fucking circus. It has to be like an unassailable opinion. And that's just impossible for people that talk for a living. Okay. And because of all the things that we try to do now and avoid these landmines and we qualify everything, every one of us has become worse at this because we're not just saying what we think. We're also trying to find a way to say it in this perfectly crafted way that avoids any resistance or any counterpoint. And it's like, man, it is so hard to do. So when you ask the guy like, hey, why do you like this team? Here's a reason. And it's like, yeah, but wait a minute. Why are you not saying the exact same thing about this other team that is kind of, and it's just like, we don't allow for like, do you know how hard that is? Hey, why don't you like this team? Well, you know, the last few weeks, it hasn't been as good. So now you're taking every one of these things, whether it's 25 or any of the other years that you've had the committee chair up there, and you're basically like, yeah, but remember when you said you didn't think this out of conference was as big of a deal, or you remember when you said that they had a bunch of injuries in this game, but now you're not doing it this way. It's like, who operates day to day like that? Who actually is able, like you wouldn't be able to survive. Like imagine, it's like dating somebody who's like, hey, remember in 2021 when you said you never wanted to live in the South? You're like, it was a Tuesday in October. And you're like, well, did I say that? You know, it's like the committee is dating somebody with the greatest memory ever, and they're constantly telling them all of these things that they said, and you're just like, I don't really know, and I'm not sitting here like defending the committee. I just don't know that that's the fairest way to attack them on things that feel like they're inconsistent. Look, it's clear in the conference championship game that some years, the loser, they're not going to want to penalize. And some years, maybe when it's two teams right next to each other, the person that is publicly representing all the people in that room is then going to say like, hey, why did you drop this team down? And you're going to go, you know, with all the data points and it being this close, and they're going to sound like they constantly contradict each other. And I don't know that we're giving them any leeway on any of this stuff ever.
Oh, it's quite possibly the worst job in America that you don't get paid for, right? It means that is a volunteer position. And so you're up there with this thankless job of having to explain away 12, 13 people in a room that, oh, by the way, you can't go back historically and look at track record because there's turnover. The term's only 2 years for those committee members. So if you tried to go back and looked at an entire decade, I mean, this was the 12th year of the college football playoff with a committee. You know, I know it went from 4 to 12. But if you tried to do that, you can't figure that out either because other years have had different philosophies. And I think I've always maintained that if you had one big voice in that room, and maybe it's not the spokesman, but it's somebody with a very strong opinion. In my personal opinion, that would be like a former coach, you know, somebody who's in there who's like, wait, I know the game. Like you can't tell me, you know, that this team isn't better. I think that could sway the committee. And I don't know if that person is in the room. Like I don't picture Mark D'Antonio being that guy. You know, there was a time when Barry Alvarez was in there. I was like, oh, he could be driving this whole room. It's sort of like the jury duty when there's the foreman. Somebody's a loud voice that could clearly impact it. And then the thing I always have to remind myself, and you brought it up, is they can pick it. They can pick the teams, and then the criteria is written in such a way that they can cherry pick the things that they value the most to justify the final 12 teams.
But they have to be allowed to cherry pick. That's
exactly,
the point.
Totally,
and nobody seems to be okay with that because like, it's like, oh, the criteria says this and all these different things. It's like, hey, have you not figured it out yet?
Right.
That every year there's going to be like a different set of circumstances, and we've only had 2 years of this. So like I saw a graphic on Fox, it was like Alabama looking to become the first 3-loss team to ever be in the playoff. You're like, no shit, really? It's never ever happened before? How is that possible? Could it be that we've only had this version of it for 2 straight years? Look, I don't love Alabama right now, but I know that month where they had to go through Georgia, Vandy, Tennessee, Missouri. And sure, like all you guys can shit on Missouri right now. Missouri's a good football team. I'm not saying that they're great, but like that month, and then, hey, by the way, your
I would
other
look at Tennessee as well.
Now that's
Tennessee and
ridiculous.
Missouri.
Look at Tennessee's losses.
But okay, but point it to their wins.
You think Tennessee's like not a good win?
I think it's an okay win, but I think it's very similar to SMU or Louisville. Like when we were talking about Miami being a loss. Oh, I think so. I mean,
No way.
I think
The SEC
Tennessee is a
sucks.
team. Who does?
The ACC sucks.
All right, now, hey, you want me to stand up here? I missed an opportunity because when you said what upset you the most, I should have said Duke being left at home. Like, how dare they leave out an ACC?
How about Manny? And I don't blame Manny Diaz. I don't blame anybody for having to sit there and like stick up for their conference or their team after the fact. But like, look,
right.
Like Vandy in Texas feeling left out. Like, hey, dude, get in line.
Right.
Okay, like it's just right.
Also, like Kalani Sitake, who said, "Boy, I'd love a third shot at Texas Tech." I'm like, would you really? Are you sure about that? There are some where they're just. It feels sad. You don't even have to.
All right.
Don't even.
So no, let's
go.
go back to this because like I can't believe that you think Tennessee. See, I think you're married to like the records. I really do. I think
is okay. I mean, after 12
no, but they're
games,
different. They're completely different experiences now with these expansion of these conferences. Like even within the same conference. Like if you don't want to get into the SEC thing with me, fine. We're probably not going to be able to avoid it. But within the same conference, you have teams experiencing completely different things. And I don't know how any reasonable person could look at the Notre Dame 10-game stretch versus whatever stretch you want to pick there from Bama, as disappointing as Bama was in that game, but at least they had already beaten Georgia at their place, which, again, ends any of this BYU comparison that people seem to want to get into on Saturday and Sunday. I don't know. I mean, even you that has fought this for years, like you really think that Notre Dame stretch from the 10 games on and their best wins are the same as Alabama's best wins?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, Notre Dame's 10-game run, and that was my case against Notre Dame when you were comparing them to Miami. I'm like, how do you think Miami would have fared against those 10 teams? Probably pretty well. They would have, look how they're getting better each week. A lot of teams would have looked like they're getting better each week. The scheduling is a major issue, and that's why I even look at Texas A&M and you start asking the same questions about them, where they're kind of propped up by the Notre Dame win. And then they played every bottom dweller of the SEC. I mean, I think 4 of their opponents, the coaches were fired. And then when they finally go against a team like Texas, it's like, so like when I look at Texas A&M going to the playoff, I'm looking at them a little bit differently now. Now they play at home, but I think that's an opportunity for Miami to potentially get a win.
Yeah, if you start talking about the bracket part of it, I mean, that's the other thing that drives me absolutely crazy with this, and we can get to the group of 5 part of this, is that to have this new system, it's like, hey, it'd be really nice. Let the group of 5 know that we got a spot for them,
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? That's right. That's good. It feels like the NCAA tournament. Maybe somebody can go on a run here. And then you have this disastrous ACC season where you're like, what's happening now? And like everybody kind of thought it was funny, right? Like if Duke wins this game, then they're going to be left out. And then we're going to have another group of 5. And I just think of like Ole Miss playing Tulane and Oregon playing JMU. And then A&M's like, and what are we doing? Like, we're playing Miami. Like, what? Like, this is a bit like the Penn State part of it. Like, granted, I'd just rather have the bye. But when you start doing this, you're like, this isn't the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So between 6 and 7, it shouldn't be that big of a difference between who your opponent is. And that's what we're going to have. And we're going to have 2 of them.
The group of 5 thing is interesting because, we were together when I was making the case for UCF, the 2017 co-national champion UCF. to get the
Right, because
opportunity.
it wasn't
to play.
an SEC team. That's
Well,
100% reason
no,
why
but
he
that was
did
a
it.
group of 5 team, and I was making the case. So I was a group of 5 hero for a long time. And then all of a sudden, boy, that has flipped. Like group of 5 programs, I got athletic directors all upset at me. But I do think so. I saw this coming in early November when USF was the team that had beaten Boise. They beat Florida. And so they were like the trendy team. And then they got beat by Miami. I think it was 49-10, something like that. It was pretty ugly. So that was their loss. And then you started looking at Tulane, and Tulane went down 45-10. And so I started seeing some of these teams, and they were the favorites from the odds makers' perspective to be the group of 5 representative. And so I said at the time, and this was just when it was the American, James Madison wasn't even really in the conversation. I was like, are we sure we need to guarantee these teams a spot? Like, I think and I'm okay. Like last year, I was totally okay with Boise. They went toe-to-toe with Oregon. They lost by a field goal. They had a generational talent in Ashton Genty. Like, I was okay with them playing in that one. I didn't love the seeding, and they fixed that. But like, I think there will be some team from the group of 5 that could compete. I think they earn it. They deserve it. So then you start looking at that. And then all of a sudden it was funny because I put out a video that I had, and a lot of people were like, you're such an elitist. How much are they paying you to say this? And you're just sticking up for the Power 4. And then now, like, to where we are now, where most people are like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, we're going to see some carnage in here. And I do think this gets addressed. And there's different ways you can do it. If you just said you have to be ranked, and I don't even necessarily think it had to be the top 12. If you just said the top 15, top 16 was the marker they used for the New Year's 6 for the group of 5, like, there's a way you could make this so it's close. I think you should have to play multiple Power 4 teams, not just one. James Madison only played one Power 4 team in Louisville, and they lost by 2 touchdowns. I think there's some prerequisites you could put on there, like you have to do this to make it. But I think everyone now is starting to realize, like, this just does not work. And it's going to get worse when we see these games unfold on the field.
Yeah, I'm totally for it. I don't care if I sound like an elitist here, but it's not the same experience with those schedules.
It's a different level of play. It's a different level.
It is. Like, I'm okay with one, because I think there's certain years in the past where it'd be like kind of exciting to see how this is all going to line up. And it's funny because, like, back in the day when everybody used to hate some of the carve outs for Notre Dame in the old BCS. And like, my whole point would be like, well, if we're talking about bowl assignments and Notre Dame is ranked that high, like, the bowl's going to pick them anyway. So This isn't that big of a deal. And when you see it play through this way, the whole Notre Dame not being in a conference thing, I don't understand why everybody gets so upset about that thing. Like, just let them not be in a conference. They don't want to be in a conference. Sure, if they had played in a conference championship, maybe they have the other data point. They're in. Bama's home. There's certain years, as we know, it can work against you. The people arguing against Bama being in it right now, but maybe there's something like, hey, if there's if we have a group of 5 and then an ACC scenario where the conference champ is not going to be, because we kind of looked at the playoff structure. It's like, hey, just remember, like, the 4 autos are not for the 4 Power 4. It depends on, like, this scenario. And then the scenario happens in the second year that maybe there should be some sort of rule. Or I thought I saw some hint at, like, a rule, like if Notre Dame is ranked a certain part, like, beyond whatever the group of 5 thing is, the second group of 5, then they should be able to get in. But I
think that starts next year. That's what I've seen.
Is that
next year, the Notre Dame, if they're ranked in the top 12, they'll be guaranteed a spot, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Wait,
and
so that's the tweet that was going around.
Yes,
from their.
It was Ross Dellinger from Yahoo.
Right.
He brought it to the attention because I think he looked at the paperwork and was looking at contracts and discovered that, and that even I think if it expands to 16, it becomes if they're in the top 16. Because that was my big thing was I do think you should have to earn it, right? So Notre Dame shouldn't just get this free pass. So like some years like this one, we should be able to evaluate their schedule and look at it and say, all right, is that schedule as tough as an SEC or a Big Ten team? And in some years, maybe it is. In some years, it might not, so that you have a better evaluation.
Well, it's not. With all these ACC games, it's not.
Right.
With this current structure, until the ACC like figures their way to turn this around. Like, look, if you look at the Power 4 and Notre Dame combinations here, and the Notre Dame thing's a little weird because of the ACC scheduling partnership there. But if you go Power 4 against other non-conference Power 4, the ACC was 7-19. Now you can say, oh, well, that's because Notre Dame, we had all these different losses. Well, the Big Ten went 5-7. The Big 12 went 8-6. The SEC went 12-6. I don't know. I don't love the SEC contenders. I've said it all season long. They came off a disastrous bowl matchup against the Big Ten last year. But I haven't heard Big Ten fans talk about any of this stuff as it pertains to at least 1 year. And maybe that 1 year is too small of a sample. So I'm glad you cleared that up because I saw that going around. And I was like, how does that work? But just a warning to everybody, if that happens and then Notre Dame gets in because of that rule, not one of those people can bitch about it that is now bitching about Alabama being in. Just a warning ahead of time.
Yes.
Indiana, Ohio State. What did you learn?
Ohio State's vulnerable. Like they're not unbeatable. I think there were a lot of people that and I would never take this bet, but I think there were a lot of smart football people. If you said you can have Ohio State or the field, a lot of people would have said Ohio State. They're just that much better. They looked better than last year's team. The way that Julian Sam was playing as a first-year quarterback, it was okay. Like he looks the part. The defense historically great. I think it looked like Ohio State was about to run through this whole field. Like I think everybody had to, and I was glad because last year when Indiana played, it was like, who have they beaten and are they really that good? I think everybody realizes Indiana's a really good football program, but even still, and it was funny because I was there and I was asking people on the field. I asked Urban Meyer, I was like, and I knew he was going to pick Ohio State. It was like, do you think Indiana can keep this close? Like we're on the field, players are warming up. And I was thinking the same. I picked Indiana, but once I saw Ohio State on the field, it was like, oh man, did I just screw this up? I mean, they had a clear, distinct athlete advantage. But I do think their offensive line, which they had not been running the football great the majority of the season, on the back end, they started to fix things, and Bo Jackson had 4 games out of 5. He went over 100 yards. But I remember watching them because you were trying to find a weakness, and they looked so perfect. Like that goes back to the conversation about how good they were. It's like, I don't know if they do. I think the offensive line really cropped up to be a potential flaw in this team that they can fix. They could get better, but that was the one thing I thought Indiana really exposed. I mean, they had 5 sacks. Ohio State only gave up 6 sacks all year. Like, that's insane for Indiana to have that performance. So I think, did I learn anything more about Indiana? No, I already thought they were really good. I think it was more about Ohio State isn't this unbeatable juggernaut was probably the thing I learned more.
Yeah, I mean, the way the schedule's closed for both of those teams, it was like this really tough thing to figure out. Like, are they this dominant? And, when Indiana is destroying teams like that, that's usually a pretty good indicator. Like, it's one thing to have a really nice record. It's like, oh, it's another 24-14, 24-17. It's like, no, this is 50-10 again. You're doing something right. And I wish I'd had the balls to kind of look past just the history with it. I didn't know what was going to happen in that game at all. And I don't mean this as a play calling criticism of Ohio State, but I look at play calling tendencies to see what they trust. And so those 2 red zone possessions for Ohio State, 3rd and 1, they roll it out to Jeremiah Smith's side. So they don't want to run it on 3rd and 1. And so I was like, okay. And then they sneak Saints, and they're probably thinking, hey, we're going 2 downs here anyway. So that's the process. And then at 4th and 1, I love the Fox broadcast, but on that play in particular, when Sayan sneaks it and we go to commercial thinking he's got a first down, and then we come out of commercial, it's like, hey, by the way, he was short. It's like, this is an enormous spot. Like, we need to be with you during this a little bit more. Hey, just a little critique, a little media guy doing a little stuff. That's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Love the broadcast. But you come back, you're like, oh man, Sayan's knee is down. All right. So then you're like, all right, what's going to happen? So then they've got a 3rd and 1 again, and they don't want to run it. Incomplete pass. They kicked the field goal. They missed the field goal. So that told me a lot about this matchup and how, you could see what was happening with Indiana's front. And these guys are just incredible, man. There's depth there. They do an unbelievable job. And even though it's 13-10, and I kept thinking to myself, this game is only 13-10. It's only 13-10, but Indiana just feels like the better football team. And then on 3rd and 2 for Mendoza to let it rip, to put the game away, man. I mean, to take that shot on 3rd and 2 is... Was it
3rd and 2 or 3rd and 6?
Was it 3rd and 6?
Check it, because I thought it was a little longer, because I was sitting there watching the game. It was with Cardell Jones, and we're like, is he going to let Mendoza, are you going to put the hand on...
If you were there, I'm going to guess you were right, but...
I could be wrong, but I feel like it was long enough where it wasn't like, it was sort of like a passing situation. and you're like, you have to
you're
make
right.
this decision,
It's
right?
Yep, you're right. 33 yards, 3rd and 6.
Yeah. So that was the thing. But even still, 80% of coaches would run the football there, maybe 90%. No matter who you have at quarterback, they just play the odds and say, let's just run it. Let's work more clock, and then we'll let our defense stop them. They probably had to do with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and the weapons they have been like, I don't know if we want to take this into risk and put it back in them. Let's try to close this out with our best player, which I do think that comes down to Cignetti, man. The dude, he is such a good coach, man. I think his confidence oozes, and it has from the minute he stepped into that program. But I think that's his call in that situation is like, no, let's win this. Let's not play it safe and trust our defense. We've got the best quarterback in the country. Let's trust him. And I think that's a hard decision for a lot of coaches to make, and to make that decision in that crunch time situation. I think that's one like small thing that makes Cignetti really good.
Yeah, and that's also without Cooper, who goes down immediately, who, I probably like better than anybody as far as the receiver. And Surratt's terrific, and Becker just goes off. And that deep shot there, I was like, man, there's so many teams that just would go, if we're doing anything, we're doing some sort of rollout, and then maybe keep it with Mendoza, and then he slides down after 3 yards, and we keep the clock. And, so yeah.
You know what gets overlooked in this game too? Fernando Mendoza probably took the hardest hit of the season to start the game. I mean, I was like, and I was so, again, everybody was like, he's done. There's no way he's coming back. Like, he's done. And it was going to feel like Texas, Bama, when Colt McCoy gets knocked out of the game. We're like, oh, Indiana's got no chance now. It literally had that feel. And then the eruption of the crowd when he comes back on the field. But even then, you're like, are you getting the best version of him? Is he that, that to me is one that'll just resonate with the NFL GMs and scouts that show like toughness, like to be able to come back and make the throws he did throughout the game. That was awesome. I have a comp for him. Do you have because I've heard 2 different names for Fernando Mendoza, and it kind of goes specifically to the personality of like
Bobby Brister.
I have not heard that one. I have not heard the Bubby Brister. And I have not heard that one. I've heard a lot of Kirk Cousins, and probably more Kirk Cousins.
Was it because of the interview after?
Yes, like the way he carries himself. He's goofy. Like I think he's got Andrew Luck. Like Andrew Luck was different with a microphone in his face. And if you went back to college, I think it would have been very similar. I mean, he's out there. They're holding them together, Ryan. I mean, he's giving you like, I love him. Like, I love it.
I had been on the sidelines for a couple of the Stanford games, and Luck to me was a psycho in the best way, though, on top of everything else. Like, sure, he had a flip phone still. Like, when we went out to the farm and we're like, talk to us about this guy. And they're like, he only watches one TV show. He watches The Office. And then, like he has a flip phone, and he's like seriously into this architecture thing. Like, how serious? He's going to be the number 1 pick. Like, he really is into the architect. So you're like, all right. But then there was a couple games where I would just watch him on the sideline going, well, there's no question about like where this guy is at. And, maybe it looks a little different with Mendoza, but, he was the better quarterback.
Like awkward. Like, I think Andrew Luck was awkward, right? And I think Fernando Mendoza is kind of awkward. I think that's the similarity to me. And I think they're both, I don't think he's in the class. Like, I don't think you'll see McShay up there being like, hey, this is the best prospect since Andrew Luck. But I do think he's got the skill set where he should be and will be the first quarterback taken.
Do you think that because Indiana got this one, it's going to be hard for them to do it a second time? Or do you just like the matchup now that you've seen it in person?
No, I have a feeling it's going to be tough to do it a second time. Like, I still think Ohio State, I still think they're clearly the more talented roster. And it did feel like Ohio State played their worst game. And I think they'll fix some of their offensive line issues. I think with game planning, you can kind of protect that. Because it was clear Indiana was moving the pocket and kind of protecting their offensive line versus Ohio State's defensive front. I think Ohio State will make adjustments against the better teams that they play, including if they have a rematch with Indiana.
Does Georgia have the best chance of any team in the SEC to win the whole thing?
Yes. Yeah, they're kind of...
Give me your SEC breakdown then, because So I'll jump in. The Stockton up and down stuff is tough to get past. You're like, all right, can you win 3 games?
Right.
With this passing offense. Now, I think that front for them looks a lot more like Georgia from what we all would expect. I would have had A&M ahead of Ole Miss if we were just going eye test. I think Ole Miss is screwed around with a bunch of inferior teams this year. And I think that's a massive, massive advantage. Just go, hey, the 6th seed, this is who we have for the first game here. And if there's a team that could go in a College Station, I was kind of looking at that, be like, hey, if they're the 7, then who's going to go in there and beat that team? Even if we thought maybe it's not as great as people are making it out to be because they're default the best SEC team because of the record prior to the Texas loss. But, if there's a team that should be able to go in there and beat Beck with his experience and that defense, I might even pick Miami in that game, which I didn't expect to do, knowing a team is going to be coming from out of conference, having to go play there. So, yeah.
The wild card is what version of Beck do you get?
Yeah, totally. We all know. Right.
Right. I mean, that's just thought. But I do think if he plays and just plays clean, I think Miami has the dudes. I mean, this is the Miami team that a lot of people after the first 5 games were like, oh, they should be the number 1 team in the country, right? I mean, they went through that first slate. It's still those same guys. They just had a couple bad games. I mean, and even the game against Louisville, Carson Beck threw 4 picks, should have had 5. They still only lost by a field goal. They still probably should have won that game. So I
watching those games, those are the games we were all off of it again. And it almost took them a couple weeks of winning for us to start to pay attention to the whole thing. And, I went into that Pitt game going, nothing will be funnier than them losing this the way they lost against Cuse last year, just with all of the chatter the entire time. And it's like, you know what? They showed up, and whatever you think of Pitt, eventually all of us have to concede that, okay, fine. The team isn't awesome, but that's a good team. Going up there and beating them, it has to be something.
So to your SEC, I really only think Georgia's the only team that I could picture winning a national championship out of these teams.
Yeah, it would be Georgia, A&M. Oklahoma's offense is so bad, I cannot imagine it winning 4 games. And Bama is so one-dimensional that I thought, you could sit there and say, hey, Jam Miller's out. But it's like, because it's looked so much better all the other weeks. Now, if you want to talk about Jam's ability to pass block, yeah.
But it's more the offensive line for me with Alabama. Not even so much Jam Miller being healthy or not. I think the offensive line is more of a liability. That's where for Alabama, they have not done a good job protecting Ty Simpson. And really, since that Oklahoma game, they've just sort of spiraled. And I think it's a crisis of confidence with Ty Simpson because he's not able. Do you remember the first time they played Georgia? And he was patting the ball. He had all day to throw, and he was ripping. He was shredding them. And then they kind of dialed it in. And I do think you mentioned Georgia's defense. I think it was going into the Mississippi State game, which was 3 or 4 games ago. They were dead last. They only had 11 sacks on the season. It's what is wrong with Georgia?
Well, the big thing with the Georgia deal was we thought their defense was disappointing last year based on their standards. And then midway through the season, to your point, I looked them up again. I'm they're even worse.
Right.
We were bummed out last year for them. And now
they're getting right at the right time.
Yeah,
some of these younger players are getting more experience. Glenn Schumann starting to dial up some more pressures. That's where I think, and it's so Stockton, he does. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Stetson Bennett. He hasn't been as consistent, but he does have, and I know he's a white kid that looks like a frat boy, 7-on-7 player. But
take it easy.
But he does. Apologies. But he's still at his best. He's played really good on the biggest stages. So I think Georgia's the only team I could picture from the SEC. Texas A&M, to me, you mentioned the dudes, their defense, Cassius Howell, they've got a lot of weapons back there. If they get their backfield healthy, they still have great weapons in Craver and Concepcion. Marcel Reed, he's very streaky. If you get but can you get multiple games of that from Marcel Reed? If he's good, then yes, I picture him winning. But I don't know if I trust him to go out there and put that many games together in order to win the national championship.
No, I don't really trust him, but I trust Elko and those receivers, and depending on the health they have at running back, I think what they do with their corners and just how athletic those guys are. And look, you'd expect any of the secondaries at this level to have a bunch of athletes out there, but the third down numbers were off the charts, and maybe the third down numbers were a little weighted by the fact that they were playing a much lighter SEC schedule than some of these other schools. So, I think it's the deeper conference. It's why, I make the Bama argument here, but I can't remember a year where I've been this down on their contenders. I can make a case for liking Oregon. So if you wanted to get into all the Big Ten SEC stuff all over again, not necessarily that we have to do it another time here, but
I have a theory on that.
Right, but to finish the thought, you're like, okay, so you may be admitting that you like 3 teams better to win a national championship than anyone in the SEC, and that's a hard thing to get past if I'm a Big Ten fan,
Right. So I have a theory on the SEC versus the Big Ten. Like the SEC was probably one of the first, and I know this has been like a joke, and it's been people have made fun of it, but like really since NIL and the portal has opened up, like everybody is above board, right? Everybody is still paying. And I think in the SEC, like teams that maybe had dabbled in it, like we're like, all right, we're all in and we're investing. And so I do think you've seen the talent disperse in the SEC that has hurt Georgia, hurt Bama, hurt Florida, like teams that traditionally could hoard that talent. Like I do think it's hurt them. And in the Big Ten, I just don't think there's an appetite across the board to, really invest the way that the teams now it's coming. I think they're waking up and they're starting to see Indiana, like they clearly invested. But I think like Michigan State just got the $400 million gift. I think they're like, wait a second, we can get that much better fast. I think it's taken longer for the majority of the Big Ten teams to invest. But the ones that are really good, like think Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, they're the ones out there buying the players. Indiana even's one that's come there. I think they've been able to hoard kind of, whereas why you don't see the depth and why there is such a big drop off that I hope evens out. Like I don't want to see a completely lopsided Big Ten where, you don't have competitive games half the time. And I think it will, but I think that's, and then if you look at recruiting rankings are like the top 3 out of the 5 teams are Big Ten teams, which is something you never saw historically. So I think there is a little bit
you
of a
didn't
shift,
because you're also adding in SC, you're also adding in, some of the stuff that's happened in just a couple of years. You're like, because my argument used to be like, hey, if you have to come up with 5 teams that can win a national championship and not say, holy shit, out of the Big Ten,
right?
It used to be a pretty fair argument. Now it's, I can come up with 5. Washington's just in a title game. I mean, whatever SC has been as far as disappointing under Lincoln Riley's run with this recruiting class and with them not necessarily being like a new school team when it comes to investing in players, you'd think SC is going to figure it out one of these years.
Right.
So yeah, I'm with you on that. And it sounds like Caleb Downs agrees with us too. So
he does. But he did say at the end, he's like, but I still see great players. He had to be very careful. He's at great environments too, which I'd never like. Those SEC stadiums are the toughest to play in without question.
Hey, we got to talk a little Big 12 here because it seemed like my boy was down on both of those teams. I totally understand the BYU. Like, okay, thank you.
Right.
We've seen it twice now, and
So I have a question for you. And
all right, but this is a tech. This is a tech.
Pull up
thing.
Texas Tech.
I'm already
schedule.
prepped. Yeah.
Well, because I do. Now this is where. Look, the ACC is trailing, right? But I do think it's there's 2 super conferences and then there's the next level, right? And I think the Big 12 and ACC are right there. So this is where I'll pound the table a little bit for the ACC and say maybe they're not as far off because they've been pitched as, they're so far behind the Big 12. When you look at Texas Tech's schedule, and their defense has been incredible statistically, who's the best quarterback they have shut down and embarrassed that they have looked that great against? And I'll tell you, it's not one of the 3 non-conference opponents because as much as strength of schedule was supposed to matter, they didn't play anybody. And neither did BYU. BYU beat Stanford. That was their only non-con. So that's one thing I think we have to start looking at is how do you do against the Big 12 had a lot of teams in the top 25 at one time. So they were kind of propped up similar to what benefits the SEC. And they're like, oh, these are really good teams. But when you dive into it, who's the great offense that Texas Tech has shut down?
Was it Scotty Fox Jr. of West Virginia, the freshman who took over? Is that who you're asking?
Maybe. Yes. Really, though, the best quarterback they faced was Sam Leavitt.
Yeah, and they lost.
And he threw for 300 yards against them. And now you didn't have Baron Morton for you. Like he was out. I think that was the game Will Hammond played. So I get some of the issues that you were dealing with.
Yeah, but it's also a very, it's an aberration statistically for what they've done defensively against everybody, because it wasn't some like fluky game against Levitt. Like they put up a ton of yards against them.
So that's where I'm like, I think they're a little bit like fraudulent's a very strong word. I don't think they're a national title contender. I think they're very similar to Oklahoma. Like I don't trust their offense is better, but I don't trust Baron Morton. And I don't know if the coaches do either. They throw a lot of underneath stuff. He misses some throws. Again, I don't think it's as bad as Oklahoma. They are terrified to expose John Mateer because of the risk of interceptions. But I don't think Texas Tech is a serious national title contender. And I think Oregon, you mentioned them, kind of whispered it before. I think Oregon is a team that can win the national championship. They get healthy. And I think Dan Lanning has just been flying under the radar all season long. If you look at the way they finished the season, by getting the win against USC, getting a big road win against Washington. I think beating Iowa the way they did, nasty conditions, having that game-winning drive. I think they're going to get healthy at the right time, and I think they could replicate what Ohio State did last year. A team that didn't play in the conference championship game. People were wondering. I like Dante Moore a ton. Unfortunately, for a lot of these teams, I don't know how they handle it. This is like both coordinators taking other jobs. How much does that impact their preparation? The team, like structure, dynamic. We haven't really seen that with this super deep run that they would have to make. So that's one thing that makes me hesitant about Oregon. But that's almost half the field is dealing with these issues with coaches at other jobs.
Hey, last thought, because the head-to-head was a big, big argument and ultimately the decider between Notre Dame and Miami for the committee. Even if I still understand Notre Dame's frustration. I mean, it's going to just be an awful feeling. But there was some stuff said that I was like, all right, I think this is going a little too far. If you were an AP voter in 1993, who would you have voted for number one?
I'm so glad you asked this question because I have given a lot of thought to this question. So I would do, what I would do? Because I don't like paying attention to brands. I would have a blindfold on. I would say, don't even tell me what logos they're wearing. Just give me the data. That's what I would want to see.
Right. That's how you shop. That's why you're at TJ Maxx all the time. You're like, I don't care. That brown shirt looks great.
Exactly. So I would look at a team and I would have one team in the regular season that would have beaten five. They would have played 6 top 25 teams and beaten 5 of them by an average margin of victory of 23 points. That's in the regular season. So then I would have looked at the other team that would have only played 3 top 25 teams and would have lost to one that was ranked 17th. By the way, the other team lost to one that was ranked number 2. And their average margin of victory in those top 25 games was 5. So you got a pretty good body of work there to compare. So then you go on to the bowl season. You had one who beat the number 2 team in the country, and the other beat the team that was number 7 in the country, both by a field goal. One was by 2 points. So I would say that in the totality, if you looked at those resumes, they are not similar. And that's the standard that I would use. If resumes are similar, then head-to-head has to matter the most. So that to me would be a pretty easy, clear cut. This resume is so much better that it's not even close. I would award Team A, and that team would be your 1993 Florida State Seminoles.
Right, but ND did have to go into the Cotton Bowl. They had to go into Dallas to beat A&M.
So that is a good point. I mean, that is a good point. They did have to go. So that's kind of a road game for them, and we had a home game for us
against
playing
Nebraska,
our enemies. Right. Do you realize that the geography of the state of Florida, it is a 7-hour drive from Tallahassee down to Miami, where the Orange Bowl was. So, yeah, I've heard a lot of that criticism, and I got to break out my 93 national championship ring and give it a little polishing and break it out maybe.
Do you have a snap in that season?
I did. I don't like there are some quarterbacks who get credit for national championships that you didn't start the full season for.
Oh my God, 49 attempts.
Against Maryland. I got to start a game. That was my first start. I started a game against Maryland against
John Starks was on that team?
Yeah. John Stark, just one. No S.
I was like, no wonder he and Charlie Ward. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to start a game. And so the game that I started was the week before Notre Dame, which was the game of the century. And Charlie had messed up his ribs. Like he had some sort of rib issue. He tore some cartilage in his rib. So they didn't tell me all week until right before the Maryland game. They were like, they didn't want to give the other team, let them prepare for me. And
oh my God, if they had to prepare for you, no wonder you lit it up.
That's right. So Mark Richt came the day before, like the morning before. He's like, hey, you're starting today. I was like, all right. So we win that game. But they also, going into the game against Notre Dame, they were like, we're not sure if Charlie's ready or not. Is it going to be Kanell? And I just remember like being terrified, being like, and I would talk to Charlie. I'm like, are you going to play? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I was like, thank goodness. I mean, going against Maryland, it was in College Park, which is one of the toughest places to play in America, and it was a cold, cloudy day, but it was not going to be the same as that Notre Dame defense. So thankfully, Charlie was able to come back, which again, he was rusty in that game. So in their only loss of the season, I don't even think Charlie was full strength. He was probably 60%. So
if you were on the committee, if there was a committee back then, you could have been like, hey, look. Yes. And he's worried about losing his job to this kid, the local guy.
Yes. There was a lot going on there distracting him. So it just made my case even stronger.
You know what? I think you did a great job. Great job representing your position there. That is Danny Kanell. It's always good to catch up with our guy. Again, check him out on SiriusXM, Dusty and Danny in the mornings in the Cover 3 podcast. Thanks, man.
You got it.
Mike Sando joins us after week 14 from The Athletic. His Pick 6 column, must read on Monday mornings. And we're going to run through a lot of stuff here, but I want to start with the AFC. Houston's dominant defense, taking one in Kansas City, a must-win spot for Kansas City, whose offense let them down a bunch of different ways. You know what? I'm actually going to start with a loser because I still think Kansas City's the headline. Below 500, likely out of the playoffs. When that offensive line got introduced against that Houston front, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Add in the drops. Adam Mahomes, like absurd off the charts career worst rating in a football game. What do you see and what are people saying about the Chiefs?
Yeah, and I don't even think Mahomes played that bad, to get those worst numbers, which is very indicative of just partly the opponent, but I just think they've reached a little bit of a crossroads here. They needed to rally and play a perfect game kind of on the biggest stage in the biggest moment. And when their tight end dropped the early pass, I just saw the reaction of Mahomes. Like, that's what we're talking about. You got to make these simple, basic plays, and they can't do it when they have to. That is a huge indictment and the opposite of what they've been. So I think it tells us that, this group needs somewhat of an overhaul. And I was joking in my mind last night, boy, wait till you hear what kind of shape Travis Kelce's going to come back in next year, right? They just can't keep doing that. So there's going to have to be a reckoning. And I do think there's some schematic reckoning on offense too. As great as Andy Reid has been, I think the criticisms are fair about the structure of his offense and just sort of getting this watered down run game, wider probably formations. They've got to reset a little and give little teeth to a run threat for them to just sort of almost get with the times again, have another reinvention, because the league has trended back that way away from where it was several years ago. So I think I wrote this 2 weeks ago. I think missing the playoffs would be the best thing for them, because it really does give you more time and forces, reflection. You don't really have to reflect when it just sort of works out for you, right? For any of us in anything we do.
All right, the Houston side of this, let's put into context like what this defense has been able to do. So whether it's this year compared to other supposed dominant defenses, you could see this happening, but Stroud's out for a few weeks in the middle of this with the concussion part of it. And it went from like, oh yeah, that's Houston again, who never really feels like a threat. But now with this AFC picture that's all over the place, maybe it's better to talk about their defense, but then also how it compares to the rest of this field, where I don't know that anybody should be afraid of any of the teams that are going to make out this conference.
Yeah, I do like Houston. Houston's one of those teams that was showing up really strong in some of the indicators that I look at throughout a season, even when the record wasn't good. And one of those things that I got into a little bit this year was just looking at how every team performed compared to against against each opponent compared to everyone else who played those opponents. I was looking at some of those things, and just it was just really like point margin. So if you beat the Chiefs by more than anyone else beat them, you would get a one by you, and that sort of thing. I went throughout, and Houston's been like in the top 5 the whole year. So it tells me they're a good team. It's competitive. They can play close games with the with the defense. I'm just not sure that how many ways they can beat you besides suffocating you with that defense. It was funny last night on Deadline with the column. I was going through it with the editor that I work with, and we were debating whether to put in something about their offense. And he was feeling it a little more like, hey, there's some potential here, and I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't put it in there. I just kind of wanted to wait. So I do think there's hope that Stroud's back. I thought he made some, even though their offense dried up for like a whole quarter at least last night. I thought he made some plays. There was some flashes. So there's still a month left. They're still in the first year with his offense. I do think that, the offensive line has probably made some gains for them. So I kind of put a little check mark by him, thinking that defense is going to be there every week. It's going to be there in the playoffs. I don't know if they can muster it all the way through, but like you said, I'm not sure there's a lot of teams that can. So I like their chances as much as anybody, really, to do it.
Is there a way to what numbers have you looked at there that compare what their defense is that maybe stands out a little bit more than some of the other teams?
Well, the 4-man rush is unbelievable. So that everybody dreams of having that, the 4-man rush. You don't have to take people out of coverage, which, by the way, they have good coverage players too, but they can just kick your butt up front. And so there were 2 things I was looking at. One was, historically, third down defense when you do not blitz. They're, one of the 4 or 5 best in the last, I think, since 2019. It was how far back I looked just with the data that we had through PFF. So that's outstanding. And then, I think I was also looking at maybe the last 160 defenses, meaning, there's 32 a year times however many years. Was that 5 years? Something like that. They were like number 2 in the EPA per play. So that is really something. Denver's defense this year is like 30th out of those 160. So they're, a standard deviation or whatever better than that. And so without being super complex, I think they've just got a system with good players and they run it well and they're hard to block.
So the numbers say, and that's what I was kind of picking up on from the column this morning. The numbers say, even though Denver, we talk about how they're built defensively, and look, it's a really good defense. That this Texans thing in a smaller sample of the last 5 years, that it's actually a different level than even though we're seeing from Denver.
It is, yeah, and I actually learned that looking. I thought Denver. I was looking last night. I was like, how's Denver like 6th on defense this year? They feel better than that to me. So, the stats aren't everything, but there's something when you compare that many teams. Houston to come out that far ahead, pretty good for them.
Should all of us like Jacksonville more?
Probably now, because it's funny. I was looking at them and I was like, they're basically what they were in 2023. Inconsistent team on offense that's really good on defense. I don't know what happened last year to their defense. So they fired the coordinator, but the defense is really what fell off last year. And so you bring in Liam Cohn, and we're all thinking, okay, if everything goes to form for Jacksonville, Liam Cohn's going to do with Trevor Lawrence kind of what he in Tampa Bay did over the years with Baker Mayfield and get that offense going. And I just haven't seen that. I think Trevor Lawrence was better yesterday, but he's, still not consistently accurate. And maybe there's some growth there, but it's hard to see. It's really hard to see. They've made the biggest gains on defense. They're about 10, 11 points better per game on defense, which is, I think, the biggest jump in the league from an EPA standpoint. So I don't know who you credit for that. They brought in a defensive coordinator who's known for taking away the ball, and he's taken it away. But, if you're a little bit turnover reliant on defense and you have a somewhat inconsistent quarterback, I think I'd take Houston, wouldn't you, over them as a better team?
Yeah, if I'm looking at all of it right now, it's tough. It's really tough. Just so the audience knows, 1 through 7 seeds here in the AFC: Denver, New England, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, the Chargers at 6, and then Houston at 7. And so, we're all looking forward to this Jacksonville Colts game. We're like, all right, look, and the Colts get right, the tough part of the schedule. This Jacksonville team that, whether it's a win against the Chiefs, Houston's week 3 win, they lose the rematch, but it's only by a touchdown, which was a really strange game. They destroy the Chargers the week after that. There's a lot of stuff. If the Jags were a college football team, we'd be looking at the resume going, hey, there's like a lot of good stuff in there. And yet I can't get past that Trevor Lawrence isn't any better statistically, that it's been the same thing. I think their offensive line is often overlooked because they grade out really, really well in both the pass block win rate stuff, the rush rate, run blocking win rate stuff as well. And it feels like there's a few weapons on this team. And so, I don't know what to do with yesterday's result because it ends up being Riley Leonard instead of Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going to, what do they got? They got the Jets, Broncos, Colts, and Titans. So, I think they're winning. They could easily win 3 of their next 4, right? I mean, they'd be a 12-win team. I do come back to, when they had to play Houston most recently, they lost by double figures. And when they played before that, they played the Rams and the Seahawks, 2 really good teams. And they
that was a
lost
touchdown game, though, right? That was the 26 points that they gave up in the fourth quarter. It was like the strangest game ever.
Yep. And then they lost 35-7 to the Rams and 20-12 to the Seahawks in a game that didn't really feel that close. So they do have, I believe, 5 wins against teams that currently have winning records. But when you look at it, it's Carolina. Houston, I'll give them that. San Francisco, I mean, how do you feel about them? The Chargers, how do you feel about them, right? The Colts without Daniel Jones and with them.
But framing it that way and then coming back to the Chiefs now doesn't count. And to me, when you watch that game, that was a really nice win.
I agree. So I do think that it's, we have to be careful with teams that have just been bad for so long to not take them seriously, to wait too long to take them seriously. So I did look at our playoff model last night, had them as a 9% chance to reach the Super Bowl, same as Houston, and just behind only New England, Denver, and I believe Buffalo. So that's pretty good respect without any bias, right? Without much bias. I mean, I'm sure there's some preseason stuff that goes into it, but that's a pretty good. Don't you feel like, okay, 4th best chance in the AFC? That's some decent respect. 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, I just like Houston so much better. And maybe it's because I feel like there's another gear for Stroud. There's also some statistical stuff you could look at with Stroud this year and then his rookie year and go, he's actually better, but it was just so exciting because it was brand new and it was a new coach. Yeah. And even though we didn't necessarily think that team was any good, Stroud's momentum as a quarterback, wherever he is, it'll be really interesting to see where your QB tiers are. Now, look, if they have some kind of run, then he's going to get a massive bump from all the people that you talk to. But it feels like he has no momentum even close to where he was thought of hey, all the talent, the composure, and all this stuff, and he's already in a playoff game as a rookie. Can't wait to see where that goes from a contract standpoint too. Maybe they just sign up like everybody else does, but so many of those deals don't look great. I feel better about him than some of the other ones. Let's stay on that though, because of the Daniel Jones injury. He goes down. It's the Achilles. Absolutely. So what? And this is the part that I look as I'm sure, were you getting a bunch of texts from people and asking you what you thought or what other people were saying to you as far as people that work in the league, and look at the Jones question that the Colts have this offseason?
Absolutely. So one of the comparisons that will be used for and against him will be Kirk Cousins. Because Kirk was coming off of an injury and got a really good contract. So if you're the agent for Daniel Jones, you can point to that. But if you're the team, you can say, how did that work out for Atlanta? They would do anything to get out of that deal. We're not going to do bad business just because of you are. So I do think there's a number and an extension that, to me, I would think he gets definitely a raise off of this year. But maybe the best thing is to do something a little shorter term. That gives him respect, because I think that locker room respects him. I think you make a mistake when you start jerking around players and off of an injury. I think that's bad for your team, especially when you think he's going to be your guy. And he's younger than Kirk was with the injury. So
8 years younger by the time of when Kirk did the deal. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. I think him getting injured actually spares them and him from a really bad end of the season that he was going to be a part of and be a reason for. Because I think he does have limitations. And I think one of the things I was working on that I wrote about was, before this game yesterday, I was talking to a coach about this. We're like, New England or Indy has this unsustainable way of winning where they're so reliant on the traditional run game. And so what I looked at was basically, I said, okay, let's let's filter out second half rushing when you're ahead and just running to run out the clock. But if you look at if you were to stack their games for yesterday by first half rushing, it's like correlates almost 100% with their record. They were like something like 6-0, and when they rushed for more than 50 yards in a first half, and like 2-4 when they didn't. And yesterday they were at 53 or 54, some number like that. It doesn't really matter. They lost their quarterback and fell behind, but that's not getting the 80-yard touchdown runs on early downs is not a sustainable formula when you're not so good on third down. You're not so good in the red zone. Some of those things, I think, is where the limitations of Daniel Jones show up. So obviously he's better than what they've had. They can win with them, but I think they were going to be a team that would come up short probably in the playoffs. And you could see it trending that way.
All right. So does anyone, I'm just trying to like get a combination of like what you hear on what people think of the AFC. Like, hey, this New England thing is real because how great May is and Vrabel. Bo Nix doesn't get enough credit. I know Jacksonville, you use your Cook Index, and you've talked about them kind of changing their philosophy, at least here offensively. And we haven't even got to that Bills shootout, which is probably the game of the weekend, and how much fun that was with a healthy Burrow back, despite the mistakes at the end. I don't feel like, look, this is what this league is, but I don't feel great about anything in the AFC right now.
So why don't you feel great about New England? To me, New England's the team that I would probably circle. What is it that holds you back on New England?
I think it has to do with the schedule.
Yeah.
And their defense it's not what these other defenses that we're talking about. And look, May's been better than every single one of these guys that we've talked about, other than, what Josh Allen maybe means to his team. And there's some stats you can get in there and say, hey, May's done it at a higher level than anybody playing the position this year. Like maybe he wins the MVP. He's been everything you could ever hope for when you draft one of these guys. And the fact that it feels like this question is answered this soon in his career is like, long-term. For this year, I don't love the collection of weapons, even though they found a way to make this work. And I do think it is a little schedule-y, the seeding.
I do think there's some schedule stuff to it. I do see them winning a bunch of different ways. So they can blow out, they can win close against Buffalo. They can just run out the Giants. They can win comfortably, like over teams they should, like the Jets. I agree the schedule is a thing, but I think of all these teams, I'm just going to stack them here on my screen. Of all these teams in the AFC, who can we say is already good, but has not reached their peak and is ascending? And that is the
Denver thing is very easy. Like, I don't like Bo Nix. I think this run of like these games are like, hey, Denver won again, even if there's a bit more seasoning on it than them. No, you're right. Like if you frame it that way, who hasn't reached their peak and who could get even better?
And who is likely to get better? Like, who is trending better? And I look at these teams and I'm like, so, Denver's one of 57 teams to win 10 or more in a season with by far the lowest point margin of the 57. So, okay, well, that tells us what we see. They're the type of team that, is going to run across that formula is not going to work. That they have where a lot of times they don't play good on offense till the end of the game. And the defense is really a big part of that. We'll see. Jacksonville, we talked about. Pittsburgh, we're not feeling that.
Well, Pittsburgh, you want to go, like, just to get them in real quick with that game yesterday, it's the best Rodgers has looked all season long, even with the huge points against the Jets in week 1. You could see from the jump, like, I don't know if he was on the peptides or something, but man, he came out, he looked like a different cat altogether. When you add in, because like it was I think you were probably doing the same thing I was. It's like, okay, this Baltimore thing's a mess. They're healthy. Lamar's back. They're going to play Pittsburgh 2 more times. They're going to win the division. They're going to be back in the playoffs. Lamar, this is just a bad year. I don't know that this derails his career here at 28 years old.
Oh my gosh.
But he's just been bad. And that's fine. Maybe he's just going to have a bad year. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks when we start up in 26. But this year, that game yesterday is like the epitome of what this league is. It's just when you think, okay, I've seen this for 10 plus weeks now. I kind of have this whole thing figured out. And now Pittsburgh's in this thing. So look, great weekend for Pittsburgh, but I'm not afraid of them.
I'm not afraid of him either, but it's funny. I was talking to a coach yesterday about the tier 1 quarterback, and we were talking about, there's a couple things about them usually. One is they're just about always available. Rodgers breaks his wrist or whatever, he's out there. Justin Herbert's trying that too. And then ideally they help coach your team. And I think one of the problems with Rodgers in recent years, the perception has been that it's all about him, and he's more criticizing the team than coaching them and contributing in that way. Whenever we've seen these other guys, Peyton Manning or Brady, go to places, even Phillip Rivers, who's a notch below, but still a great player, they're elevating. And so I wonder internally with Pittsburgh, if remember he called out the receivers last week, did they have a really good productive meeting? Because it looked better to me. And he completed 4 passes more than 20 yards downfield, which he hasn't done since 2020. And he's only done more than that 6 times in his 274 starts. So there was something different about him. And maybe they do get a little mojo here and finish a little bit better. It'd be perfect for Steelers fans who want a new coach, right? And then Rodgers retires after the season when they win the wild card, and you win one wild card, you're out, and you're like, hey, we did it.
Yeah, did it. Mission accomplished. Bills, great win. I don't know if Allen has an outside track and MVP here.
He does.
You do? You think it's still?
I think
it's
he
in
does.
play?
I was watching yesterday thinking that, yes.
So what's the argument for him compared to how many contenders do you have that are still alive for MVP?
Well, I think you got to have Drake May and Stafford probably are the betting favorites. I think Stafford might even be the number 1 betting favorite. And then I would put, I think Allen is in that lurker category for me, where I was looking at it last night, just some of the metrics I look at. I have one that's just like quarterback EPA, meaning how much EPA on quarterback plays, basically. And he's number 1 in the league right now, quietly. So I think that those types of games like yesterday where their defense isn't what it used to be and he's got to rally on and carry the team, that's what a tier 1 quarterback is. And we know that he is that. So if they get the team results, they're what? They're 9-4 now. They've kind of been, Buffalo, and I'm going to look at their schedule here. If Buffalo, let's just say they're going to get New England this next week. If he outduels May, let's just say, I think in 1 week he can move the needle on this thing. If he totally outplays May and they win at New England and it's a Josh Allen show, which totally could happen. Don't you think then that he could easily be, could he go past May in the MVP?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Stafford's turnovers, dinged his odds a little in the Carolina game, but it was also on pace to be one of those great historic touchdown interception split seasons that, we see from some of, it feels like Rodgers got a couple of them, Brady's got a couple.
Rodgers has. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think he's great. I think the Rams may be the best team in the league. I mean, they're really, really good. I think it may be McVay's best team, but yeah, on these AFCers, I think Buffalo, we were going to talk about, and I feel like they're just lurking. I still think they can do it this year. But their margin for error is not even close to what it was. And we see that in their bad record the last 2 years. If the offense does have an off day, they're 0-4 this year, 1-7 last 2 years, versus being maybe 500 before that when the offense is below average statistically, just negative EPA. And then they are, they become more of a 500 team on the road when they used to win most on the road. So that tells you there's what we see, right? It tells you what we see, that they're still pretty good. They're still going to have a good record, but they do not have the defense. And they're super Josh Allen reliant, to go all the way. Best thing for them is Kansas City's out of there probably. So that has to help them. But are you, I think you take the field over any one of these teams, and that includes Buffalo.
What's the Buffalo road record? Because I know you had that in your piece. I don't know you have it up in front of you.
Yeah, Bills 3-3 on the road this year, 12-11 over the last 3. A lot of teams would take that, but they were 23-9 away from home over the previous 4 years. So that shows the regression that we feel, right? That they're still a good team, but they're not as consistently great. They're just not as complete of a team.
Yep, that's good. That's really good, because it's that stuff that you're like, is this actually happening? And look, I think it's the worst team with the best chances because of who else is in the AFC around them. And the betting odds would favor that, because they still have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl. I think their Super Bowl odds, let me just double check it again here.
We had them at 16% for us, but which would be third in the AFC.
betting odds, they're still the favorite in the AFC, ahead of New England and ahead of Denver. And by the way, Kansas City Super Bowl odds are still higher than Pittsburgh's. But if we go to odds on the MVP that we wanted to finish off this, Stafford's still the favorite. Then it's May. Then it's Jordan Love. Then Josh Allen is slightly behind him. Do you want to guess at who the first non-quarterback is available for MVP odds?
Yeah. Would it be Jackson Smith and Jigba?
It would be.
Oh. Well, yeah, I live in the Seattle area, so I ought to
That was tough.
be aware. I was trying to think of who else it would be. I don't think it would be Puka on the same team as Stafford. I don't know that I'm sure he has great numbers, but JSN came off the pace a little bit. What's he at now? I'm going to look him up because
Plus 10,000.
No, I want to see what he's on pace for, because he is a great player. He is. That was one of the things, maybe you'll chop this out, but has anyone had a better year in a front office than John Schneider of the Seahawks?
Well, you would answer that better than I would.
It's unbelievable. I mean, their second round pick, Nick Emanwari, yesterday joined Julius Peppers and Adrian Wilson, the only guys the last 25 years to block a field goal, pick off a pass, have a sack in a game. I think he had 2 tackles for loss too. He's a baller. He's one of these Kyle Hamilton guys who's playing like edge rusher, inside linebacker, safety, corner, slot, all of these things. Going to be a superstar. But their off-season guys yesterday, I think, or their veteran acquisition guys, Rashid Shaheed from the Saints scores on a 100-yard touchdown, catches 4 balls. Obviously, Darnold, it was a pickup for them. You're moving on from a starting quarterback. That sort of a deal is hard to do. Cooper Kupp catches a touchdown for him yesterday as well. DeMarcus Lawrence has been a great player for them, a great addition. Good for their young guys. Plays the run, plays tough on a really great defense. So I'm probably leaving a couple guys out. They're Gray Zabel, their first round pick, starting on the offensive line. They got a really nice receiver in Horton, who's hurt right now, but the tight end Arroyo. I just think that team, for where they were, has really made a jump.
Yeah, I love the secondary. I love the guys that they've drafted. I love seeing what they've been able to do. And, maybe it's still a Darnold thing, but I want to pivot here to the NFC. Let's at least start with the Chicago Green Bay game. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
Green Bay is a perfect example of just what the NFL is. The beginning of the year, hey, they look like they're better than everybody else. Cleveland game, like what the hell's wrong with them? Oh no, they are better than everybody else. The Dallas game, you're mad. The Carolina game, you're mad. But then it's like, oh, well, Carolina's sort of weird. And then, they run off these last few and you go, okay, Jordan Love is that guy, after the Philly loss, which was their last loss of the season. I'm not saying that they're going to go undefeated the rest of the way. And they beat the Bears in what was a game I couldn't wait to see. I wasn't shocked that the Bears lost it. But do more people in the NFL like the Packers more than the Rams or the Seahawks? Or how are the Packers talked about in comparison to the other contenders?
I don't think so. In fact, I was talking to a coach yesterday who watches the NFC North pretty closely. He's got a home in that area, and he was like, loved the game yesterday. He's like, this is what the rivalry should be about. It got chippy at one point. I mean, they're both trying to run the ball. It's cold. It's competitive. Yeah, the Packers are a better team right now, but the Bears have an edge to them, and it was awesome. And that's good for the game, good for the league. But as we were talking, he said, I don't think either one of those teams are good enough defensively, like the Rams or Seahawks are, to really go all the way. And that's what's going to be what holds them back. And you say, wait a minute, Green Bay, good defensive team. They got Micah Parsons. It was pretty cold out there. I didn't study the game, but was Parsons making a huge impact late in the game? Didn't feel like it to me. Watching it, maybe he was, but I think there's some inconsistency with Green Bay I don't know if it's just because they're always the youngest team in the league or what, but I do think they're really good on offense at their best. Defensively, maybe I don't put them in that upper tier. Do you?
There's more weeks I've really loved their defense than haven't, so maybe Parsons didn't have the game that we've all expected, but I just think there's been so many games where he's actually wreaked havoc on everybody that I wouldn't hold that against him. And look, we're also dealing with Caleb Williams, where as frustrating as he was, awful start to the game, 1 of 7, awful close to the game, the decision on the interception into the end zone. He's just a lot. Even if you don't like Caleb Williams, pass rush against him is a pain in the ass.
No, it totally is. It totally is. I agree. It's different. He's a great escape artist. This is true for a lot of teams, so I'm not going to hold this too much against Green Bay. But here's their really super good defensive games. We're against Minnesota, against Washington, against Cleveland, and against Philly. And now Philly, Super Bowl champs, also against Pittsburgh, pretty good defensive game. Well, I think most of those teams have major issues this year where they're talking about the quarterback or the coordinator or that's a backup in the game, right? So when you look at who they have really struggled against, Dallas, the Giants, I have no idea how. Detroit in their victory, 31-24. They were okay against Cincy, but I don't put them in I think they're a defense. You have a major game plan consideration with Micah Parsons, but you also feel like you can get some things on them too. So do they improve down the stretch? Are they a team, like we mentioned, New England, that can still get better? And I think they probably are. The interesting part is that they were probably loved more before the season than they are now at 9-3-1. I think everyone was on them to start the year. And I think more people are just kind of lukewarm on them, even though they've won 73% of their games, right?
Yeah, I think that's, if we're just taking a temperature of a team, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's right or not, that is at least accurate on how we've talked about them. I have to, before we do like the Rams and Seahawks in comparison to them, then I've got to ask you about Caleb Williams, because as a believer, there's a lot with this team, right? Like I was looking at the turnover percentage, opponents' drives ending in a turnover. It's 20%, just under 20% for Chicago. Seems like an insane number that 1 out of 5 drives ends that way. If you look at the rest of the league, like 18 teams are at 11% or less. You've got the Commanders, 6% of opponents ended in a turnover. Giants, 5%. The Jets, 0.8%, which maybe is as impressive as a number as the Bears leading the NFL in it. There was another number they showed yesterday, Caleb Williams, which makes sense because like the frustration that I have with him is I've been able to figure it out this year is like, clearly there's a read that he doesn't like the way that Ben Johnson would like him to like that first read a little bit more and let him rip into whatever it is that they've called, which leads to them. I mean, you just can see it now. And I think 21% of his pass attempts are while running, which is second highest in the NFL.
And the one last week, the great one to Komet, this is a great play, throwing left. He's got 2 guys open for the first down.
So I don't want to ask this after a game-losing pick into the end zone with more running underneath.
Yeah.
All right. But I'd say the collective is better than the Caleb Williams referendum that you shared with us when we did the QB tiers, where I was like, hey, is this 1 or 2 guys? And you're like, no, it's like 17 guys. I don't expect that 17 guys are going to check in with you after yesterday's game, but do you get texts from guys that didn't like him saying, see, I told you? Because I imagine that's human nature.
No.
What are people saying about him now that you talk to about Caleb?
I think it's a little bit of a generally positive shift, on Caleb, because it was one of the great lines coming into the year was like, this guy's either going to be a tier 2 or tier 4 really quick. It's going to go one way or the other. I kind of feel like the way he was dumped on coming into the year, and there was that big article, that Tyler Dunn wrote, like, I feel like it's been a real pleasant shift for that, where you can see the issues within the offense. But you do see some progress. I mean, I do think there's some improvement in this. I don't think the number one thing is he's not taking a bunch of sacks. And that demoralizes your offensive line and team and gets coaches and everybody else who votes in quarterback tiers down on you as fast as anything. It's such a non-team thing when a quarterback is doing so much on his own that he's ruining plays. So Caleb still does a lot on his own and probably too much on his own. He's finding that balance, but I think there's no question he's better and eliminated so many of the negative plays when he's holding the ball longer. And And that has to be seen as progress. So, I still don't know that he goes into tier 2. Do you think he would? I just kind of off the top of my head would feel like he's got to have a pretty good finish to do that. I think he'll get some 2 votes. Maybe some people will bet on him to be a 2. I do think it's generally positive, though. I don't think the people, the naysayers aren't rubbing anything in at this point. And maybe the team context of winning is helping that, but he's a part of that as well. And I don't think he's done anything that turns off people in the league with like just the way he's talking about the games and stuff. That don't you feel like when you watch him after the games, it's pretty good now?
I don't know that anybody brings up any of that stuff. They would if he looked as bad as he did in 24 again this year.
Yeah, I think it's a general positive, general positive, but I still think I don't think he's done enough to be that established tier 2 guy yet. He's consistent enough. Now, maybe he gets it on talent, but it's just my gut.
I don't think he'll be in tier 2 if it stays like this the rest of the year. The difference is after last year, you're like, is this guy going to get the second contract? Or now you look at it and be like, hey, if he can build all of this, I really would look forward to him being in Ben Johnson's thing going into next year. Like that's when we're going to kind of know who he is. Because I think there's always going to be the plays that dazzle you, the plays that frustrate you. I don't know that he's ever going to lose that part of it. But I would say letting it rip, being a little bit more aggressive on covered routes within reason. Not risking turnovers necessarily. It seems like he's shied away from some of that stuff with how I've watched it this year. You said something before that I thought was interesting that I want to follow up with just to make sure we cover the Rams and the Seahawks. You think this is the best Rams team McVay's ever had?
I do, and I was ready to write it until they lost at Carolina. So sometimes the results are sometimes things are true, but the results in any 1 week prevent you from discussing it. I
would have loved to have you just, hey, I know they lost to Carolina, but here's my thought. I would have loved it if you had done that.
Yeah, I probably should have done that. Other things were going on, and I wanted to tip my cap to Carolina instead. But yes, I do think that, number one, their defense is really good. I think Chris Shula is a very good coordinator. I think Sean McVay is more than just an offensive coach now. I think he, behind the scenes, is into the defense a little bit too. And I think they've got a great combination of coaching defensively. They are, in some ways, I have to update the stats, but they moved on. This would probably be something I do as part of an analysis. They moved on from one of the 5 greatest defensive players in the history of the league and got better. No one's talking about life after Aaron Donald, are they?
No.
That is unbelievable. And Donald also retired in his prime. That makes him different than some of these other. I put him on a list with Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, right? When we're talking about the absolute greatest players to ever play defense. And J.J. Watt could have been, and maybe he is. He had some injury issues. But it's probably, I'm going to have to go look who of those guys, this will be my research, walked away when they were still the best player in the league at their position, which I think Donald probably was. And then what happened to their teams? Where's this fall off? Did they go sign a bunch of guys in free agency to replace them? No, they drafted a couple guys from the same school because I think they get a bump out of that, Verse and Fisk. And here they are. With a top
they
5
think that they think like there's a camaraderie, like
they think there's a synergy, like a thing to get 2 guys that can play out that have played together. They think there's a bump off of that. That's one of their scouting things.
That's interesting.
And so, is there some sort of exponential effect off that? Well, the sample size is too small. We don't get to run 1,000 samples of that to know, but looks pretty good for them, I think. And so that is really remarkable to me, to be a better defense than you were with Aaron Donald. Now, they would be better they'd be even better if they had Donald on their team, obviously, but that's amazing. And then I think they have found a sweet spot on offense to where they have a good mix between the run game and the pass game. I think the scheme, McVay is out of that realm where he'd gotten solved for a few years. I think they're probably in their best spot of having a prime elite quarterback with the scheme good, the people around him good. Obviously, Puka Nacua is a great wide receiver, but they have other guys. I think Devontae Adams has been a nice add for them as a great 2 for them. And if we were to put every team up on a board and say, what's your weakness? What's your fatal flaw? What do you got for the Rams? Because we can come up with one for just about everybody, right? We can come up with one for Seattle until Darnold plays better in a big game.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
So I just wrote my next, I just previewed it. It's great to talk to you because it gets my mind going. But that's probably something that I'm going to write here that I just feel like that's them. And now they're going to play, they and Seattle each have a game this week. And then they play each other in Seattle on a short week Thursday. It could be for the division and could be for the number 1 seed.
Did Seattle do enough in slowing the Rams down the rest of that game with the Darnold turnovers? Like, there's a way to talk about that first matchup in LA a few weeks ago where you go, hey, you know what? Seattle maybe should feel good. Like, who will you pick in that rematch at Seattle?
I'll probably pick for Seattle in the rematch at home on the short week. I don't know that if they win, it makes me feel like they're necessarily for sure better. But I do think that you could come away from that game. I don't think after that game, the Rams were like, we want to play these guys a bunch more times. At the same time, I think there's something to the Darnold stuff. He even did it yesterday, early in the Atlanta game. He makes silly interceptions. He forces the ball in there and tries to do tier 1 throws, rolling to the side and just forcing it in there. Just live for another play. Defense bails them out. They end up rolling, Atlanta, they get a kickoff return touchdown. That ain't happening against the good teams. So that is still a concern for me that I think people used to have that a little bit with Stafford, the gunslinger, but he's obviously done a much better job protecting the ball. And so I do think Seattle probably wins the rematch in Seattle. I thought they might even win the first game and lose the second one. I think there'd be a split there. But I still think the Darnold thing is an issue until he shows it's not.
That's Mike Sando. Read his piece, The Pick Six, in The Athletic every Monday, recapping the best stuff from the week in the NFL. And, of course, we'll check in again this season, man. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Holidays right around the corner. We got Kyle. We got Ceruti. You guys got big plans? What's going on?
Just drive my truck around. That's it.
Yeah.
Probably that's all that's on my schedule.
Forget baby Jesus. The gift giving to oneself sometimes can be the most rewarding. So let's talk about the process, buddy. New ride.
Yeah, new ride. My wife and I went in, drove a couple of Forerunners around. We were going to check the Broncos out too, but I mean, the Forerunner was just kind of speaking to us. We drove the regular, like the stock, and then we took one spin in the premium, as they say. And it was like, I guess we're just going to have to finance the premium. So that's what we did. And it's great. Right. I drove to CVS yesterday, an hour before they were open. Like, guess they're not open. Have to come back later. I'm just driving places. So it's been great
feeling.
Yeah, never had a new car, so this is cool.
Brand new, 0 miles.
25. I think there was like 120 miles on it, but they had to get it between dealerships. So he explained it to me. There was still plastic on the wheels. I was like, cool.
Hell yeah. What color?
It's white. It's white and black. Nice black trim. Apparently the black ones are hard to come by. So white was like second on the list. So
yeah, I remember a couple early car deals. Black car, just a salesman like lining you up. So I was like, had a black Durango, looking to trade it in. The guy was like, "What are you looking for?" I was like, maybe a little upgrade. Really like the Durango. Maybe, something like this. But depends on the trade. And he's just immediately telling me how bad my current one is. It's like, it's the same fucking car. Like, shouldn't you not? Isn't this like the ACC?
You just want the newer
really
Durango.
Not? Yeah. You take it easy on Notre Dame a little bit with your partnership.
Yeah, this guy got a whiff of my Bronco thoughts, and he immediately had like 10 facts about why the Broncos suck. And I was like, hey, I wanted to try this first anyway. So relax. Yeah. I'm a Ford guy, and I'm a good American. So why don't you chill out with how you're talking about Ford?
When we bought my wife's VW Tiguan, the guy
that's how you say it, Tiguan. I always just kind of guessed Tiguan, but that makes
I think I'm getting it right. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, you're an owner.
We're big VW people. But the guy just started shit talking Jeep out of like nowhere. And like I had a Jeep and he didn't know.
It's like classic mistake. Yeah.
And he might have been right. I don't even know. But it was like probably not the move. And he's like, what car do you have? I was like, 2019 Jeep Cherokee. No big deal.
Man,
don't
I'm
have
so
that anymore,
sorry.
but still. Not the move.
I love the old Jeep Cherokees.
The old ones, like the early 2000s, 90s ones, the box ones are awesome.
Love those. But I've had a scenario where a salesman told me the black car was hard to keep clean and a white car was hard to keep clean.
Honestly,
So
both
he's like,
right though.
Kind of polar opposites though. So
what are you going to get? Red? Like
forest green. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get yourself a nice
Pine?
forest green.
Yeah.
Pine.
like a
Hunter.
dark gray.
Hunter.
Hunter.
green,
I don't know.
maybe.
When- the
my
one
Jeep,
thing-
my Jeep was green. Honestly, did look clean all the time.
Winter time is a little tough for white. I think, you see that salt and the just everything that gets spun up there pretty easily. So
But apparently same thing with black because it stands out. Like when it's not clean, it shows. So maybe the salesman wasn't, but it just was
maybe
something
that guy just
early
didn't
on.
have any black Durangos to sell you. That's probably what it was.
He's like, by the way, we have a car wash package for you. Just if you're looking for it. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, here we go.
Yeah. But no, whenever you if you're on a budget, don't ever drive the nicer model of the car that you want because it's just impossible to
It's crazy
get
how
back
much
into
better
the
they
other
make those
one.
things.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like knowing that the other version of what you have is that much better.
Yeah.
It's like I could feel the suspension. Yes, and you're just like, I don't know.
And
Sure.
then once you have that 6-way seat and it's like you get in the other one and it's like, just yank that bar up and scoot yourself up and it's just almost the same. So anyway.
So we had a few follow-ups to the guy that was going to try to ask his girlfriend to go live with his friends for a year without it disrupting their plans likely to be married. And they had a dog together too. So I felt like it was fairly impossible. Of course, other guys. There was a few submissions where you're like, this isn't the same thing, dude. But we got one here.
Okay.
Man, 37, 5'11", tell people I'm 5'10" because I'm clearly not 6 feet. I like that. Switching up on people. It's like,
And
man,
then
you're
they're like,
tall.
dude, you're not 5'10". You're
Yeah,
taller
doesn't
than
that feel better?
You're like, ooh, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe more 5'11" guys should do that. It's like
That's
instead
cool.
of being like, are you sure? And then you're like,
I don't know. Maybe I'm not, dude.
185, no gym stats, but I'm only 6 weeks away in my mind. All right. Player comp. My dad used to call me Moses Malone because I had a fat ass and knew how to use it to own the glass. This guy's got a lot to offer. To the guy who wants to take a 1 year break from living with his girlfriend and moving with his boys, I can say this is for sure, all caps, insane. However, it can be done. My older brother, 1 year gap, pulled what I would call an even crazier move post-college with his then girlfriend and now wife. Around springtime of the year my brother was graduating from college, he broke the news to my parents, brother and I, that he had a girlfriend and that things were pretty serious. It was shocking news to everyone since we'd not heard about a relationship. Guys will do that.
Yeah.
I remember there was a girl that I was dating long distance, and then I said something. She was like, say hi to your dad for me. Like, make sure he says, I was like, he will ask who you are.
Yes.
She's like, oh. And I probably should have not said that. I could have just very simply said, like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, just run that through the old
But I
processor, the old Russillo processor, and bring it out the other side.
I had to be so straightforward that I was like, I will not do that because he doesn't. She was like, oh, great. Psyched on this special. But that's a guy thing. It's probably more of a guy thing. Just, to tell the ladies out there, if that happens to you, the guy may still be in love. He's just, Anyway, around springtime, okay, shocking. After my brother graduated, he moved back into my parents' house. I was also coming home for summer break, but still had my apartment at college that I would spend time at because it was only 45 minutes away from home. That must have been awesome during the summer.
I can't believe
Like,
you
hey.
let them. I can't believe they helped you get an apartment 45 minutes away from home.
Or that they weren't demanding that you sublet it out, or you
Yeah.
subletted it out with people that it was like, hey, I'm still going to come back and crash on the couch. But anyway, my
on
parents'
that.
house is in the suburbs outside of a major city, but they downsized as my brothers and I got older, as we likely wouldn't be living there much longer, except for this summer,
Surprise.
huh?
Yeah.
Soon after we were all back at my parents' house this summer, my brother sat us down and said that his new serious girlfriend that we'd still not met would be moving into my parents' house because she'd be working in the city. It seemed like this would be a temporary situation until they saved up some money and can move into a place closer to the city where they both work. Fast forward to the next spring, they're both still living with my parents. I was now graduating college and would be moving back into my parents' house full time, which meant space was going to be tight. Side note, my parents were strict about co-sleeping under their roof, so she was sleeping in my room most of the time while I was at school. That would have been hilarious. It's like, you're not dating, so you can sleep in the same, but obviously he was still at school. After a few weeks of me being at home, my brother decided he had saved up enough money and the living conditions weren't ideal. So he, being the savior he is, was going to take one of the team and move into an apartment in the city with his 3 buddies. When I tell you the only person who did not seem to think it was insane was my brother. His girlfriend continued to live with us for a few months before she was able to move out and to get into an apartment with a friend she had from college. They continued to date throughout all of this. They're happily married with 4 amazing kids. I don't think it's the same. It's wild. It's not the same.
It's not.
It's not.
You had an out. You had an out. He's like, well,
you had somebody pushing you out. You had a ticking time bomb. And you're like, here, I'll shuffle this out the door.
A grenade he was very willing to fall on, I assume, as well there, which is fine, you know? Like,
right.
Oh, man, I guess they'll pull my arm. I guess I'll move in with the bros. Like,
that way you can live comfortably with my parents
instead
and not
of
awkward at all. Right.
Not being able to hook up with my girlfriend in the same house because my parents are also my roommates, I will sacrifice to go live with my 3 buddies in the city while you are still here. I'll do it because I love you.
I'll go live in the dangerous city and you kick it in the suburbs.
That's incredible. He saw an opportunity, was like, I got this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for me.
It's wild.
The thing is our original emailer, the foundation is so strong that he is trying to disrupt what is a great start to their life. This foundation is so fucking shaky that it was an easier pivot.
You don't even notice. Yeah, you don't
long term. It worked out long term. Maybe that's the answer though. Maybe you need a disruptor.
Chaos.
You need chaos. Somebody to, I don't know what it is, but you need somebody to come in there and shake shit up and brainstorm on that.
Start pouring grease down the just full bacon fat liquefied down the pipes and just be like, we're gonna have to move from here. I don't know.
What if he said one of the buddies has some sort of medical condition, but he's vague about it?
That's what I said last week.
Oh, is that what you said? That's when we were doing the Make-A-Wish thing. My bad, Kyle. And then she's just like, wait, how's he doing? He's like, oh, his anxiety's way better.
It's anxiety. Nice.
All right. A little plain stuff here. Pretty straightforward. 33, 6'5", 215, 449 mile last year. Damn.
Good stats all across the board.
Morgan would love that. Wonder what his mile time is right now. Bet you it's awesome.
Probably.
Part of the French Basque listeners that love the Biarritz shout out. This is Basque for hello. I don't know the pronunciation.
Okay. Sure.
Don't know it. Player comp Chase Bunninger. Writing you for the scene of the crime. Boarded a flight today from Paris to Phoenix. Shocked they have this as a direct flight. I am too.
Yeah, me too.
That's unbelievable. Just
a lot of Parisians like, I gotta get to Phoenix. The desert's calling.
Snowbirds.
I'm a 40-year-old divorced guy. I'm in a slump. Phoenix. As a taller guy, I always pay more for the bulkhead seat to get the extra leg room. Always available on Air France 36 hours before. Very helpful on 10-plus hour flights. When I got to my seat, there was a mother and a baby in my spot. I showed them my ticket, and they politely moved to their seat. Hate having to do that, but it's not a Southwest flight. Southwest is changing that, by the way, right?
Yep. They are.
Before taking off, yeah. It became clear that this flight was fairly empty and the row behind me was vacant. I offered the mother my seat and said I'd be happy to sit in the row behind so she has more space for her and her baby. Neither French or English were her first language. But she was very appreciative, felt like a good deed. Can only imagine how hard it is to travel with an infant. All is well. Here's my dilemma. 30 minutes in. Oh, so he's writing this right now. But it actually was a few days ago. 30 minutes into the flight, I'm working my laptop and she goes into full recline. No regard. Feet up on the wall. White Lotus, season 1, episode 1. On her screen, I'm squished and we have 9 hours and 55 minutes left in this flight. Fortunately, I could scoot over to the middle seat next to me that's open, but I can't help but be troubled by this. Feels like a blatant disregard of plane etiquette and decency, especially after I gave her my seat. Now, this isn't the first time I've ever reclined on, so I could pull out the usual tricks, the subtle knee, the rummaging around that shakes the seat just enough, or simply retrieve something from the overhead.
Things, yeah.
Yeah, remind her that a relative Basque giant is behind her. Ultimately, I will do none of the above, and instead I will write all of you. Am I justified to feel laws of the air have been violated, or as Captain Barbosa would say, are these rules more like guidelines?
Nice. I mean, he's in an empty row, right? I mean, you totally could. I guess I do enjoy sitting on the window if that's what he was doing. And he's like, I either have the window and be squished, or I'm in the aisle or the middle seat and I got nothing to lean on. Certainly noticeable. Certainly a noticeable
I went from an
difference.
aisle to a window guy, which was shocking to me. But
I did too. I can just
always been a
hold,
window guy.
I could just hold my pee on planes, so I don't really have to worry about it.
Same.
Maybe as I get
There's
older,
no reason
I
to get up. I don't want to get up.
Yeah.
I don't want
And if you have to get up once,
Yeah.
getting up once is totally,
Get up once.
hey, I'm going to get up once. Like everybody kind of has to get up once. I'll get up once. You don't have to, but get up once. You know, just because you're aisle doesn't mean you're in charge of your row. Although some people seem to think that they are. But window's just a move because there's more room. You can ooze into that extra room over there. Yeah, Kyle just did it. The look on his face, he was thinking about the comfort of a window as he did it. Yeah, I don't know. Mom with an infant, I'd probably defer to anything that she probably needs because it's a super pain in the ass. But recliners don't care.
What are the rules, man? I don't know what the rules are with recliners. You know, if I get reclined on, should I recline? I don't know. Should it stop with me? I'm not a recliner. I get some sort of? I'm not either, really.
Yeah, I don't recline out of respect.
I feel like I don't really need leg room when I recline too. I end up going like a little bit forward just so the back of my seat can go back. You know, so I'm a leg room guy more than a lean back guy. So
I think to the Barbosa point, they really are more like guidelines that just like people with self-awareness follow, but they aren't really laws because this case, I'm not going to do anything. I wouldn't do anything. And you have the benefit of the whole row, so I would probably just move over or slouch. I mean, you have more space, so I'm not going to have a ton of sympathy for you. I know you're tall, but that there's really not much you could do other than kind of like the kicking thing and kind of be an asshole behind them. But even so, what's going to happen? I don't know. She's probably just like, I'm going to get my sleep. I don't really care.
Yeah, the reclining thing. Some people are like, hey, why would you make the seats recline if no one can use it? And then it does set up this kind of domino that it's like, well, if you're going to do it, then I have to do it. If you have the laptop going and somebody does it to you, it sort of sucks. But like, I don't usually recline, but if somebody reclines on me and I have no choice and I'm trying to work, I'll probably then recline. So I don't want to
take a look to see who's sitting behind me too. Like, is this dude my size or
might do a slow little.
So
like almost make it seem like it's not happening. The only one that bothers me is the guy that sits down. The plane isn't even off the ground yet, and he just goes boom, and you're like, "Oh, first time."
Setting the tone.
Yeah, right.
Set the tone.
Yeah,
yeah.
I look. She's got a baby with her, and it sounds like you could fix it. And she's probably doesn't know what the hell's going on. She's not even thinking about you. She's not realizing.
She's French.
Size.
Just be oblivious. Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but
Lloyd Christmas, the French are assholes,
I think it's really more of a Parisian thing than it is
maybe
anything. I've never run into any issues anywhere else, but I've also never been to Paris. What does that mean? Who knows? Ryen, Kyle, Ceruti, big fan of the show. That's right. It's our names. Those are our names. 6'4", 225, 24 years old, NBA player comp, Kenneth Fareed, the man.
A lot of height on this pod so far.
Yeah, pod's huge. That 5'11" guy looks huge. The 5'11" guy that emailed in about the parent, he also sent in this unbelievable story that I cannot share. That's like, I just want him to know that it was appreciated. It was one of my favorite stories I've ever read.
Wow, he's going to love that.
The head nod. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he told me not to put it in. I can't. I wish I could. It doesn't really expose anything, but it gives more background on who he is. So I can't do it. Former All-American water polo player, can bench 390, deadlift 550, 545, fellow Nathaniel Philbrick enthusiast like Ryen.
Hey.
You're taller, stronger, and younger. So you're winning, buddy. I've been dating this woman. We'll call her Sophie for 2 years. Sounds hot. Sophie and I met in college. Both are working in a large northeastern city, both making good money. About 3 weeks ago, myself, Sophie, and my roommate, one of our other friends, who we'll call Emily, all went out on a bar on Saturday night with a few of Emily's work friends. The rest of us had not met. One of Emily's friends, let's call her Mary, immediately started hitting on me. I introduced, well, dude, you're fucking 6'4".
Water polo. Yeah.
Former water polo.
Yeah, send a pic so we have the audience.
Did you guys ever hear that? Like, there's things that like we all hear, like what's the most, like we were talking like who's the most athletic athlete? I had always just heard without ever seeing a match of water. Is it a match or a game of water polo being played? It's like those guys are the best athletes. Your feet can't touch. That's just what I always. But I've never. It's just like a thing you always hear, like sort of like Marilyn Manson removed 2 of his ribs. Like I never did any research on that, but it's just something I heard. I don't know if you guys ever heard.
Like, I did hear that. Yeah,
that water polo players were the best athletes.
Well, Will Kane was I think he played water polo at Pepperdine, and so he would bring that up all the time. So I have heard that before. Yeah, water polo and honestly, like he was in good shape. And
right.
Like I wasn't going to dispute it. But yeah, you got to shred water for like an hour basically and throw a ball around. That seems hard.
Yeah, and you got to get stuff done. Yeah, I don't know. That's just what I heard. I was wondering if you guys heard that in your regions growing up too. Maybe not.
By the way, the rib removal thing for Marilyn Manson, for anyone that may be on the fence with that one still, apparently that's just not true.
It was not true.
Yeah.
Did he start that rumor? Who starts that rumor?
I don't know. He's like a guy who I think maybe would be like, hey, any press is good press, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not
That's
sure.
a weird one to leak, though. I don't know.
Did you have any friends who he was their favorite artist?
No.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, it'd be a no for me.
That's like the only thing we all knew about him was that.
Mm-hmm.
And then later that he was in Sons of Anarchy, and we're like, oh, is that the rib guy? Anyway.
But you ever notice like, yes, but you ever notice like, I remember thinking like the kids that were wearing like the 9 Inch Nails t-shirts in high school, I'm like, man, those kids are fucking weird. Then you grow up and you're like, wait, 9 Inch Nails is fucking awesome. I love that.
I think the t-shirts just looked like they were scary, but it was actually
I don't know if
like
those kids even listen to 9 Inch Nails. Yeah, they were just wearing the shirt because it was like a vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Joy Division t-shirt.
Yes.
You lost me.
Well, I don't know. It's been a go-to t-shirt now for a bunch of years because it's kind of like a cool looking t-shirt. I don't know how many people are into the band.
It's like a mountain or waves. What is it, right? Yeah, or something. I forget what it is.
Yeah. So Marilyn Manson, I think we got that taken care of. Water polo.
Sorry.
If you can drown playing the sport, then I think it's on the higher end of athletes.
Okay.
So yeah, back to our tall, hot, strong guy. So
who's got 2 women hitting on him? Okay.
Yeah. She immediately starts hitting on me. I introduced Sophie as my girlfriend, but Mary continued to very obviously flirt with me the whole evening. She spent the whole night trying to talk to me, kept touching my arm, laughing at everything I said. I generally think I'm a funny person, but I'm not that funny. Oh, humble and tall, strong and hot.
Yeah.
Cool.
This guy.
Nose Philbrick. Come on.
Should be even on like New Heights or something.
Not after last night.
Oh, wow. Never mind.
Is that too mean?
Try to be tough game. I try to be friendly while trying to generally shut down this flirtiness and make sure Sophie felt all right. It was a weird situation to be in, as I could tell Sophie was bothered by it, but I wasn't encouraging it at all. My roommate and Emily both agreed afterwards that Mary was flirting with me, and I handled it as best I could. I'm almost wondering if this is like a nursery rhyme and all of this is fake. Afterwards, I asked Sophie if she was all right. She told me I did nothing wrong, but was uncomfortable with how Mary was acting, and seeing her boyfriend get hit on right in front of her, I was able to reassure her and move on. 2 weeks after this, Sophie and I decided to mutually break up. This had nothing to do with the Mary situation. We ended on good terms. It was about as mature and amicable as a breakup as I could hope for.
My question is.
Yeah. However, a few days ago, Mary texted me asking me to hang out, having gotten my number from our mutual friend. I've never cheated or been disloyal in my relationships, and I'm fully broken up with Sophie. Mary is also super hot. And is only looking for something casual, which would be fun after a breakup. However, it feels wrong to get with a woman who I met for the first time while still with my ex, who made her insecure super recently. Is this a scumbag move? Am I overthinking? What do you guys think? Big fan of the show. You're 24, dude. Give me a break.
Dude, could you drag your feet on this for like a week and a half so you feel a little better about this? I think maybe that's what you could do.
Yeah, what's the window? When is it right? I mean, here's the thing.
Make it longer than you want it to be, and then maybe you'll feel better about that. I don't know.
Based on the way you just described yourself, Sophie's probably a little bummed out still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
But it was mutual. So Was it?
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. But
maybe it has to be for her to feel good. I don't know.
I think there's the important point here, though, is that she wants it casual. You're cool with that. Why does anybody else have to know?
Because
people find out things.
Yeah.
All right. But like, that's on them then if they're like
It is.
digging around looking for stuff. Like, you're allowed to, I got to be honest. Like, this guy gives you every reason to not like him. He's got everything going for him in life. And I like him a lot. Because this is a good question. Stand up. I mean, I appreciate that you're thinking about this because it is nice, but I kind of think you're good. It would be weird if you just like all of a sudden start dating this person like now. But if it's just kind of casual and you're post breakup, honestly, Mary, the friend Mary, like it's kind of more on her. Like she's more of the asshole because she's obviously swooping in, and they're still friends presumably, although maybe they're not after the incident.
Could be
for you. I think just live. I think you could just live your life here.
Yeah, deprive yourself of it for like a week after the inception of the idea. Maybe you'll feel better about it.
Look, we could come up with some make-believe date in time that makes this all feel better for everybody, okay? The second Sophie finds out, that date doesn't exist for her.
Exactly.
It could be 6 weeks, it could be 6 months, it could be a fucking year, all right? And there's probably going to be some part that's like, oh, but, like, of all the people, it had to be her. And you're like, well, yeah, it's a layup, and I don't have to put any effort into it whatsoever except for like being with you. And maybe Mary's really devious. Maybe her whole thing was like, I wanted to create tension to break this whole thing up because he is so tall, strong, and attractive and good at water polo. But I don't necessarily want anything with him. I just want to see what my powers are capable of. I mean, who knows? A lot of stuff going on there in those 20s. But whatever that date is, there's no consensus on it. And it's likely unavoidable. So the longer you try to reach this pretend date that makes you feel better about what you're going to do anyway, let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
There's no real definition. There's no way to pull that off. And if you waited too long, like if you wait 6 months and go, okay, this feels like it's long enough, or 3 months, right? Who are we kidding? Again, he's 24, so this won't even make it till next Friday. But I can tell you what you'd also do if you try to be the really good guy and wait forever for this imaginary date, and then you miss your window. You're going to spend years. If she's that attractive, you'll spend years going. I mean, unless you're just, it sounds like this guy could just fall out of the front of his apartment, and yeah, and it's going to work out for her. But when you miss out on some of those great opportunities, all you're going to do is replay it in your head and going, that was so stupid. That was so unbelievably
Uncle
stupid.
Rico and Napoleon Dynamite. Man, if Coach put me in, we'd have taken state.
Right. But other than that, maybe we can get your number and 4 of us get on a text thread, just see what's going on time to time.
Northeast City. There's only a couple of them,
Yeah, no, this guy could be in Hartford. No wonder he's killing it.
Let's go.
Put on my adaptive cruise control. We'll meet up.
It's not even fair. Like, we got to get this guy out of New Haven.
Kyle's like, you trying to take a spin in the 4Runner? Let's go.
Dude, let's go to Vermont. Why not?
I think Russillo's back there this weekend. I don't know what this is. I think we had one. We just have so much time with the taping schedule today. We're gonna do one more. Sure. I think we've had a lot of this, but all right. Big fan. 6'2". Damn. 190, 26, former NCAA D2. We're the podcast for athletes. Former NCAA D2 national runner-up, live in a large city with a good friend that I met through work and graduate school. Been living with him for over a year. Haven't cracked the code yet on the most enjoyable midweek sober experience on watching sports with him. Issue.
That's funny.
He consistently drops bad sports takes, such as he gave us bullet points. Yeah, we get a few of these. Players shouldn't call timeouts in any sports. Why would anyone even care about that?
Old school.
Never really crossed my mind.
No good NBA games have been played since the 90s. So I have some threads for you that he can look at. Had no reaction to the Luka trade. Quote, that's just how the Lakers do it.
All right, so this is the value in the email is the bullet points, not whatever we come up with. It's the bullet points.
That's
says when you think about it, javelin is the toughest discipline. No, I made that one up.
Come on.
He was doing so well here. Here's the last one. Consistently overreacts to penalties and non-penalties in football games.
I will say the ref thing. I don't need ref talk anymore. I'm out.
I am okay with. I'm okay when I do it.
Right.
I'm okay with the concerns I have about evolving tendencies with how certain things are officiated. Offensive player initiating the contact, defensive player, some of the out of bounds stuff that we see with quarterbacks. Anybody that's dicking around on the sidelines now in an NFL game, I don't care if he's decapitated. All right.
Jackson Dart.
Because what these guys have gotten away with, I'm going to sneak 3 extra yards. I'm going to do the Mahomes or that Kyler Murray one.
Hack.
Yeah. So now this gray area of was he going? If your foot is inbounds, I don't care what any defender does to quarterbacks at all anymore because of how that had been officiated. Anyway, you're right though, Ceruti, because I interrupted your train of thought there. The good call, bad call, that's a hold, not a hold, right?
There's nothing like that when you're watching with dudes from your tribe, though. If you're all pulling the same direction, there's nothing like a couple of Pats dudes
conveniently forget.
Those dudes
conveniently forget everyone that has also gone in their favor. They conveniently never remember any of that stuff. And it's just I'm not saying officiating in sports is bad. I think overall, but it's bad. I don't think anyone gets an unfair advantage. Like the whole Chiefs thing. The Chiefs have gone down the bad end of a bunch of calls recently. This idea that the NFL is hey, we're just going to give them whatever they want.
Not in the script this year.
Not happening. Yeah, certainly not this year. The tush push thing, I'm out. It's bad in soccer too. My God. So I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, here's all the Alabama talk, and then I saw a lot of stuff after the Iron Bowl. It's after the refs, and of course, the SEC wanted to make sure they were going to be in the whole thing. And I'm watching that game, and on 4th and 5 with 2:32 left, Auburn's got the football, and it's an incompletion, and Alabama gets called for pass interference. And it's okay, but you understand the easiest thing in the world there would have been don't call anything. It's 4th and 6, incompletion, game is over. Bama still has a chance as an extra SEC team in there. And so that's my problem with any of the conspiracies is there's so much evidence to be that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, you think they don't want them in there or on and on and on. It's yeah, but what about the thousands of other examples that no one ever pays attention to? And I wrote that one down. I was perfect example. They called them on 4th and 6 that would have ended the game with pass interference, reset the downs. Still a chance for them to pull off the win here, but no one ever brings up any of that shit. All right. So also running into that my girlfriend's dad also dropped some tough takes. He dropped the take that an incomplete pass in the NFL should not stop the clock. I usually hit my roommate with a yeah response since I don't want to have a Lincoln Douglas debate over some Tuesday, Thursday sports action, especially since I'm just trying to unwind in the evening. I would consider myself a pretty big sports fan. I stay pretty locked in college football, college hoops, NFL, NBA. I'm not grinding the all 22 version, but wouldn't be opposed. Any tips and advice for watching sports with people that don't follow the sport closely yet drop some bad takes? I think you're already there, man. I think you're on the way to a path of happiness that just is... You're already you've given us a sampling here, and he's never going to go, oh, that's a good point. I've changed my mind, which none of us necessarily do. So I think the least amount of energy that you expend on this is the way you win this.
Yeah, do the Keanu Reeves. 2 + 2 = 5. Okay, congratulations.
I'm going to zag on this.
Okay.
I think there's an opportunity to have a lot of fun here, and you just go the opposite way and you start saying some crazy shit
with your roommate. Right? I mean, you think about this. You got to have energy for this often.
No, you don't. You could, whenever you're in the mood for it, you could just dabble back and be he could be what? Give me an example of what's one that he said. I forget.
That's just how the Lakers do things, man.
You could be that's just how David Stern does things. The NBA's rigged. Just start going full conspiracy theory on him. That's what I mean. We've done this multiple times. It's just I think in these situations, you have to have fun with yourself because you're right. The guy's not changing. You're not changing the guy. So you might as well just at least have some enjoyment if you're going to be around this guy. I'm trying to think. Have you had any funny, because I did have a funny, I think this dumb thing should happen in sports. I remember, I think it was working on Mike and Mike back in the day. And I was I don't think you should be able to foul out in basketball. And I was serious. And I still kind of believe that. I think instead of fouling out, I think you should get 2 free throws in the ball. Because then, if LeBron fouls out in a huge game, which he never does, that's a bad example.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen.
Sure. But like, it's
Just
like, hey, if
way-
I still want to play
That's the way the
LeBron,
Lakers do things.
you're right. There you go. But if you wanted to still play LeBron, he gets a foul. It's 2 free throws in the ball.
I don't hate it. I got to tell you right now, the relegation thing, which is not new, but it's always hilarious whenever anybody finds out about relegation for the first time. And what are there 9 different leagues that you can go up and down in the Premier League? Is it 9?
That would be a lot, really.
There's 4 like real leagues. And then there was the 5th one, which is where Wrexham came from, which was like a non-league, I believe. It's like the National League. I don't even know. It's barely even like a professional tier. There's probably 9, but there's really only like 4 to 5 real ones.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about NBA expansion. Why not just add 10 more teams, but you relegate the top 20 to tier 1 and the bottom tier to tier 2. So it's 20 and 20.
Would be awesome.
Who's gonna watch the other
I would.
tier? You'd watch.
Yeah, right.
You would. That's
Kansas City, Fresno.
right.
Yeah. But then how would you do the draft though? Because like, so the worst
That's
team
a
in
huge
tier
problem.
2. Yeah.
Right.
It feels
Like
so,
Hartford
like
having the
Zion's
number
in-
1. Right.
But Zion in tier, like just an example, Zion in tier 2, then I would watch tier 2 because he'd be on, he'd be must see TV.
You're not sick of Zion yet?
Oh, it's just an example of a guy. All right, Cooper Flag,
Right.
right? Cooper Flag, same thing. Like I'd watch Wembanyama, although with the Spurs, I guess the Spurs were that bad then.
Poughkeepsie River Rats. I'm in. I like that.
Yeah, get a team in Hartford.
So you have 10 new teams, which means you have more inventory to sell and there's more revenue. I do wonder if the owners of the teams, like would the Wizards go, yeah, awesome idea. And then you're like, you're in tier 2 NBA.
Once you start down there, bud, yeah, you'll find your way up.
Yeah. Imagine the Lakers during some of those lean years there towards the end of Kobe, where what did they not make the playoffs like 5 straight years? The Lakers are in tier 2. Would that make any sense? I mean, it's just if it's based on your performance and how you're doing, but would there be enough revenue with 10 new teams, all that extra inventory to sell? And here's the thing, like I think you would explain it better than certainly I would. The league below the Premier League, what is it, Champions League?
It's called the championship. Yeah,
Championship. People still watch that stuff religiously.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, because like
it's-
there's still some big clubs in there, and they have huge fan bases, and I'm sure it's not as big as the Premier League, but yeah, there's trying to think, Birmingham City, Tom Brady, shouts out to Brady, part owner. They're in there. They got a bunch of fans.
Yeah,
It's the second biggest city in England, or one of them.
Too much these days. Tom Brady.
would it solve tanking?
Yeah,
Probably not completely, but
would you tank for Cooper Flag? Would you get relegated for the opportunity to draft Cooper Flag?
Yeah.
Probably
Probably not.
Wembanyama. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wembanyama probably, yeah.
actually a lot of these guys, they'd probably still go, hey, we're not that good. I mean, look, free agency's nearly impossible. Trades are even harder than ever before. All the first and second apron stuff, like you're more incentivized to tank maybe than ever before, even if it doesn't feel like it was as bad as it just felt like 10 years ago was awful. Play-in game, maybe some of that stuff. But I don't, there's all these unintended consequences that I can't even hash out right now. But if the goal were we want to expand, but now that's slowed down quite a bit. And then it's like, well, we maybe just move a couple of these franchises around or whatever. It's like, what if you just keep the 30 that you have, and then you just go, all right, we're expanding out. And you have 10 new teams, and then you could go to the league, you go to all your television partners where you've cut up this product 5 different ways, where I still can have a Wednesday where I don't know where the game is. Could you just say, hey, we have this many more games in this many more cities, and the buy-in alone is just this massive, massive hit of cash, even though you'd be splitting up the TV rights for all the existing 30 owners, but add 10 new teams.
The pro-rel argument, though, always was kind of like it was best used in college, though, right? Like if we just had 10 different tiers of 12 teams or something, right? And the bottom 2 every year go down, top 2 go up. Everybody plays everybody. At the end of the year, who's got the best record? There's that way. Like, there's no like, hey, Indiana didn't play, all the big boys or whatever. There's no conference. There's no scheduling bullshit. Like you just play everybody and that's it. Like that to me would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't think any of the programs would ever do that, because you'd have, like, say, let's just use like a Clemson, for example. Like
It'd be like a
Clemson.
tier 3. Yeah.
Well, no, but I'm not even talking about like Clemson, even at the height of their powers, right? Where it was the only team that was competing with Alabama at that level for a bunch of years. Why would Clemson go, yeah, let me join up where I have to play Ohio State? I mean, look, I don't know that Bama and Ohio State would have wanted to do it either, because it's like I'm probably just better served staying in my place here. But I don't know. Look, did we fix the NBA just now? I'm not sure.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm sure somebody else has come up with this, by the way, too. Like, it's not like it's new to talk about relegation of American
You still
sports.
can't find NBA games? Like, there's no like, where's my NBA.com? Like,
I'm right on. I'm all NBA
today?
app now, pretty much anyway,
Okay.
for everything.
All right, got it.
So I miss commercials.
Okay.
The in-house arena stuff that I'm watching.
Oh, that stuff's awesome.
You
yeah,
do
Stuff.
miss commercials?
My guy Stuff, the Magic Dragon.
Stuff, AI or TI in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Trey Young got it wrong.
Oh my
He was
God.
like, they was TI lyrics, and he had to guess AI or TI. Luke Kennard got it right.
What's up?
Trey Young got it wrong.
You really
And
are
then-
watching these things.
Yeah,
Okay.
Trey was like,
That's my wife's favorite part of the entire broadcast. She just
Oh
wants
my
to watch the in-stadium entertainment, which
What
I
kind
get.
of hijinks are they doing?
Yeah. Every once in a while you get a Red Panda appearance.
Glad you
yeah,
said.
but you see enough games, you see enough Jumbotron action, you almost start missing Terry Crews, which seems crazy, because that Terry Crews ad's the most annoying fucking ad of the season. And then they did another one, which is, again, the whole point. They're like, let's make this ad so annoying that somebody references
Can't
it.
look
And
away.
I just did. So shout out to Dodge. But that ad's
Yep.
a tough
Tough,
watch. But so's your seventh game of NBA tic-tac-toe when you're locked in on a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Corgi
So yeah,
wrist.
man, good luck. I don't really think we answered much of that email.
I don't
here.
remember
Just
what
had
the
a-
question was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the guy. Yeah, never mind. We're good.
That's Life Advice. LifeAdviceR@gmail.com. Remember, a good 10 minutes every week on our YouTube page. So please subscribe to that and subscribe to the pod as well. Ryen Russillo Show, part of the Barstool Network.